I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We do have some news to attend to, and we are a little bit early today because we've got a big announcement from Ron DeSantis that's going to be dropping in about 1 hour from this moment right now. And we wanted to be sure that we got to some important news before that news dropped. And it looks like we're connected, which is great. That means we can get started. So let's do it already, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. Today, my friends, we are talking about decisions. We've got several of them to attend to. One of those is going to be coming up very shortly. It's Ron DeSantis hanging out with Elon Musk on a Twitter space. And we are going to jump into that Twitter space in about 1 hour from the time of this recording. We'll listen in on it live. It should be live. It shouldn't be scripted. And apparently Ron DeSantis is going to be taking some questions from the people in the Twitter audience, which will be fun to listen in on. But before we jump into that, we want to preview what is happening. Ron DeSantis is launching his run for the presidency. And Elon was talking about their Twitter space. So we'll see what Elon said about it. We'll take a look at Ron's video announcement, or video teaser is the better word. And then he has a plan to beat Donald Trump because he's currently not so high in the polls. Trump is beating him by some polls in 20, 30 points in some places. And so what is the plan? What's he going to do? Trump, we'll take a look and see if he has any reaction for us. We have Vivek has some questions for Ron DeSantis now that he's officially throwing himself into the ring. And we've got reaction from some Trump-sided people like Kari and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So we'll try to get all that in before the actual Twitter space starts. But first, we've got Trump business to attend to, several different prosecutions that I want to take a look at. Apparently, special counsel is wrapping up, which is not good for Trump, means there might be an indictment coming down the pike pretty soon. And they actually sent a letter over to Merrick Garland demanding a meeting with him, saying, look, if you're going to be indicting and prosecuting Trump, it is a problem, and we need to have a conversation with you specifically. So we will read through that letter, just a very short letter, and we'll poke around and see what the special counsel is up to. Apparently, he's going outside of the United States and investigating Trump and some of his foreign affairs in other parts of the world. So you can tell this thing is getting very hot very quickly. Now, Trump also had an appearance yesterday in court. You can see a screenshot. He appeared by video with him and his attorney in front of Judge Juan. And we'll take a look at that proceeding. I mean, this is getting out of control. But Inner City Press was there, so we have a thread about what happened in the proceeding, which we will read through. And Trump responded, and we'll also turn our attention to what's happening in Georgia because Fani Willis, the fanniest of all the fannies over there in Georgia, is communicating that there will be a prosecution probably announced in August. And of course, because we're taking a look at what DeSantis has to say for us, we'll also check in with Trump's 2024 vision as it becomes clearer by the day as he continues to run. And so we've got some election stuff, some primary stuff to get to, some Trump witch hunt, Trump prosecution stuff to attend to. We are a little bit earlier today because we're trying to squeeze this stuff in before the big announcement over on Twitter. And so, my friends, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to be a part of our amazing community, we would love to have you. We do member-only morning streams. This morning, we talked about the Target removal of the tuck suit and other items. We talked about Representative Luna wanting to censure Adam Schiff and fine him $16 million. And so we have fun on those member-only streams. And so come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you join on YouTube as a member, you can also join us for our after parties and for our member-only streams. But just don't forget to hit the Telegram link, which is in the community tab section on YouTube. Now, because we have some serious business to attend to, we got to make sure we're properly fortified and nutrified, courtesy of our friends at Field of Greens, because we all would like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, right? But how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and Fad diets, we've all been there. We've all done that. They just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Let's talk about Field of Greens instead. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert when you check out so you can save 15% at that checkout. And remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. That's why they burst out of the ground and dance all over the place. Make sure you get your nutrition and your greens, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. All right, my friends. So let's get right into it on the day. The Trump prosecution continues. Special counsel might be wrapping up his inquiry. Jack Smith, you see here, has been working to prosecute Trump at a federal level for 2 different areas, one related to the confidential classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, the other pertaining to January 6th and the allegation that Trump was obstructing and interfering with the process of democracy. And if the special counsel is wrapping up, that means he might be coming to a conclusion, and the conclusion is concerning enough that Donald Trump and his team have requested a meeting, and we're going to read through this letter, with the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, the person who runs the Department of Justice, demanding a meeting. And so it is looking like things are heating up, and they're heating up quickly. We take a look at the background here from the Wall Street Journal. They tell us that the special counsel is wrapping up the Mar-a-Lago probe. Says Jack Smith, the guy we just saw, has all but finished obtaining testimony and other evidence in his criminal investigation into whether Trump mishandled the classified docs at Mar-a-Lago. Some of Trump's associates are bracing for an indictment. Some prepare to fundraise off the prosecution. But clashes within the Trump legal team are continuing. In recent weeks, we learned prosecutors working for Smith have completed interviews, look at this, with nearly every employee at Trump's Florida home. Every one of them. From top political aides to maids and maintenance staff. That's how bad they want this guy. And just keep this in mind as Donald Trump is going through the primary season, through the presidential election. He's got teams of FBI agents, teams of Justice Department officials, hundreds of people, I would imagine, working on this to comb through every facet of his life if they have not already done that enough already in the years preceding this era. Some of those multiple rounds of testimony, and my friends, you don't do this unless you're going somewhere with it, on questions that appeared to home in on specific elements that Smith's team would need to show to prove a crime, including those that speak to Trump's intentions and questions that could undermine Trump's defenses. The special counsel team conducted a flurry of grand jury interviews in recent weeks that appeared to tie up loose ends, the people say, meaning we're getting close to a conclusion. But the Wall Street Journal couldn't figure it out. Can't determine whether Smith has decided whether or not to charge Trump or if he has presented a recommendation on the matter to Attorney General Merrick Garland. That's why they requested the meeting, the letter that we will talk about shortly. And it's not unusual for a criminal defendant to reach out to the Justice Department and ask for a meeting. This happens regularly. Our client was involved in a car accident. You haven't charged him yet. We think you might. We just want to reach out to the charging bureau and see who is investigating this before they make a decision about whether to charge or not. We'd like to talk to them. Hunter Biden, as we know, met with the Justice Department, and we'll see if they decide to prosecute him, and if they do, whether they're for any crimes that are legitimate or whether they're just stupid tax crimes. A Trump's spokesman didn't immediately respond to a comment And a spokesman for Jack Smith, who is the special counsel, also declined to comment about the prosecution. But Smith's team has been examining whether anyone tried to obstruct the criminal inquiry. They have obtained evidence that appears to show that Trump held on to sensitive documents after being asked to relinquish them. That's the basis for the obstruction charge. They said, you're not allowed to have the documents. We're the head librarians of this country. And if we say they come back, they come back. Trump said, that's not true. If you're the head librarian, you have more power than I do. And that can't be true in our constitutional framework because the National Archives doesn't run for the presidency and doesn't run the executive branch. Last week, the National Archives sent a letter saying it would turn over to Smith's team of records communications between then President Trump and some of his advisors about how he could declassify documents. So in other words, they're talking about this. They're saying, what should we do? Maybe we shouldn't. Should we not? And they decided not to. So they had the intentionality to take the documents and not comport with the law. Material that could help prosecutors overcome the defense that Trump said that he could do some of this verbally. So I see what's coming out now. Trump's people are saying, well, he wants to verbally declassify these things. National Archives says, no, you've got to fill out a form. You have to go fill out form, I'm the head librarian, and then you can take the documents. But Trump says, that's ridiculous, because if I have to go through bureaucratic hoops in order to get something done, and I don't do the thing, then who really is in charge? I say this is the thing, you get it done. CNN first reported about the National Archives transfer. But they're saying in this case, Trump didn't go through the appropriate steps to get the documents. It's a process crime, essentially. Smith's team is still pursuing a separate inquiry into efforts by Trump and his allies regarding 2020. They say any charges, if filed, would come at a politically delicate time. Trump is already campaigning for the nomination. He's the front runner, set to take on Joe Biden. Separate special counsel has been investigating Joe Biden, but nobody cares about that one because he's just a stand-in candidate. And so that is what they tell us from the special counsel's office. And we also know that they're investigating Trump not only in the United States, but also outside of the United States. And it goes back to 2017. Now you'll notice January 6, 2021 came after 2017, but they're going all the way back to 2017. The classified documents problem also came after 2017, but prosecutors want records for everything because this is not about legitimate prosecutions. This is about eliminating a political opponent. It says the special counsel scrutinizing the former president's handling of classified documents issued a subpoena to the Trump Organization seeking records now related to 7 countries. Did they help with the January 6th insurrection? Did they help with the classified documents? Or is this just a prosecutor and a Department of Justice scorned that is going after their opponents? It says federal prosecutors overseeing the investigation into former Trump handling of classified documents have issued a subpoena for information about Trump's dealings in foreign countries since he took office. It remains unclear precisely what the prosecutors were hoping to find. Doesn't really matter. They don't have to find really anything specific. As long as they just get something that harms Trump, they're okay with it. By sending the subpoena to Mr. Trump's company. But the subpoena suggests that investigators have cast a wider net than previously understood. They're scrutinizing whether Trump broke the law in taking the sensitive government materials with him upon leaving the White House, and then not fully complying with demands for their return. The subpoena, drafted by the Office of the Special Counsel that was evidently leaked to the New York Times, sought details on the Trump org's real estate licensing and development dealing in 7 countries, digging into China, France, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Oman, according to people familiar with the matter. The subpoena sought the records for deals reached since 2017, when Mr. Trump was sworn in as president. They want everything. And so the Trump org swore off any foreign deals while he was in the White House. And the only such deal Mr. Trump is known to have made since then was with a Saudi-based real estate company to license its name to housing, hotels, and golf complexes. But they don't care. They want it all. The push by Mr. Smith's prosecutors to gain insight into his foreign business deals was subject of the subpoena. Also dug into the venture known as Live Golf. Collectively, the subpoena's demand for records all the way back to 2017 suggests that the special counsel is exploring whether there is any connection between Mr. Trump's deal-making abroad and the classified documents he took with him when he left office. Unclear what material Trump has turned over in response to the subpoena or whether there's any new evidence that supports the theory. Again, it doesn't matter. The judges are giving the special counsel just carte blanche. They really get whatever he wants. They've shattered the attorney-client privilege between Trump and his lawyers. They've shattered executive privilege between Trump and his executive team. And so Mr. Smith can just get whatever he wants. He had interviews with Mike Pence, for crying out loud. But since the start of their investigation, prosecutors have sought to understand not only what sorts of materials Mr. Trump removed, but also why he might have taken them with him. Among the government documents discovered in Trump's possession were some related to Middle Eastern countries. And again, we thought that these were letters. Some of these were letters between Trump and North Korea, for example. And when the FBI executed a search warrant in 2022, Mr. Trump's private club and residence in Florida, among the items was materials related to France. A spokesman for Mr. Trump did not respond to emails seeking comment. The Trump org issued a statement saying, quote, "While the Trump organization has for decades been a global real estate empire, we made a strict pledge to not enter any new foreign deals while Trump was in office." Mr. Trump has long argued the documents he took belonged to him. Justice Department said no, they don't. Trump said, "I took the documents. I'm allowed to." He said, "I have the absolute right as the president to take control of documents under the Presidential Records Act." And they say, well, it gave control to the government, right? But guess who was a part of the government? The president. And we've known this. I think the judge's name was Amy Berman. Amy Berman, Clinton sock drawer. Yeah, Judge Amy Berman Jackson. This is the same argument from Politico, if this will load. Says a judge won't seize Bill Clinton's audio tapes. Why? Well, because he's the president. U.S. District Court Judge Amy Jackson said there was no obvious legal mechanism that the archives could use to force Clinton to turn over the recordings. Said it's not legally proper for her to issue an order since the archives has discretion about when to assert rights under the Presidential Records Act. But if you read her opinion, she says that the court can't question this stuff because the president gets to detail what qualifies as a presidential record or not. And so they use this to stop Judicial Watch from getting access to it. And now when Trump invokes the same type of privilege like Bill Clinton did to say that they're personal records, they throw a fit. Mr. Trump's comments about the records being his personal property were in line with advice he was said to have received from Tom Fitton, the same person who filed that other claim. While establishing a motive for why Mr. Trump kept hold of certain documents, while it could be helpful to Mr. Smith, not necessarily required. They're working on obstruction. And as we've talked about earlier this week, they're trying to make Trump backed into a corner to say that if he tries this again, if he does anything that stonewalls the government again, or if he challenges the election again, that means he's a clear and present danger to America and that he needs to be locked up and held in custody without bond. And it wouldn't put it past them to try that. He's also examining the aftermath of the election in 2020 and the violence at the Capitol on January 6th. But as you can see, things are heating up. Special counsel's team is still bringing witnesses to the grand jury. One witness this week is William Russell, an aide to Donald Trump who worked for him at the White House. Mr. Trump has other pending issues in various other locations around the country. And now Trump's team is obviously concerned about this. Trump lawyers are seeking to meet with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, over these special counsel inquiries. Two lawyers for the former president asserted that he was being treated unfairly. We are going to read the letter. The letter doesn't cite any specifics, but it goes over to Jack Smith. He is scrutinizing Mr. Trump's handling of the documents, as well as efforts to retain power after the election. Now, there are indications that he is approaching the stage where he could start making decisions about whether to seek indictments, especially in the documents case. We don't know so much about the January 6th case, but there are concerns that this is going to be happening soon. Spokesman for Mr. Smith declined to comment on this. The letter's tone, they say, is markedly different from the approach taken by Trump shortly after the FBI executed the search warrant. They said previously in that letter after the raid that this was inflaming the country. But this is a lot more confrontational. So let's take a look at the letter itself. From Trump's lawyers over to Merrick Garland. Sent via courier, May 23, 2023, to the Honorable Merrick Garland. Very short letter. Says, Dear Attorney General Garland, we represent Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, in the investigation currently being conducted by the Special Counsel's Office. And unlike President Biden, his son Hunter, and the Biden family, President Trump is being treated unfairly. No president of the United States has ever, in the history of our country, been baselessly investigated in such an outrageous and unlawful fashion. We request a meeting at your earliest convenience to discuss the ongoing injustice that is being perpetrated by your special counsel and his prosecutors. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Sincerely yours, John Rowley III and James Trusty. Sent on behalf of Donald Trump, meaning that they're also hearing that something is coming down the pike soon. And I think this is the end game for them. They've been wanting indictments for a long time, since Trump came down that escalator in 2016. They've been plotting, creating a team, creating a narrative. And generally speaking, as a general rule, you don't do raids of a former president's home and launch multiple prosecutions simultaneously within the same year if you don't have an end game in mind. And that end game is very likely going to be Trump ending up in jail or prison or some analog of that, so that he is sidelined and removed from the game. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're investigating all of his affairs across companies, across overseas business deals that really have nothing to do with either one of these base inquiries, nothing to do with January 6th, nothing to do with the classified documents. Now, they may try to make a connection to say those classified documents have something to do with those foreign business deals, but as far as we know, there's no evidence of that at all. And of course, I doubt there ever will be, because as we see, most of the rumors about these documents, as we heard, are letters from Kim Jong-un or memorabilia from conversations with France and so on. But they are going to take these and turn them into crimes of the century and prosecute their political enemy, because that's how they win. Disgusting behavior, but we know who we're dealing with. So that is the update on the special counsel prosecution, which is taking place at the federal level. And that is just one level, the higher level. Now, there was more. Donald Trump appeared in New York in front of Judge Juan to face an inquiry in the Alvin Bragg prosecution involving Trump's alleged criminal financial transactions that occurred before Trump was even president. Trump appeared by video. You can see him here sitting aside his attorney and answering questions from the judge wanting to clarify that Trump understands the rules as this trial proceeds. And this useless news website, forget where it came from, they tell us the following. Trump is now going to be standing trial for the Alvin Bragg prosecution in March 2024. And something else is happening in March 2024. We're going to be right in the middle of an election season. So former President Trump, as we see here, appeared in front of the judge in a virtual court hearing on Tuesday. And a judge said Trump is scheduled for trial March 25th, just months before the presidential election. He's already pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records. And if you missed those charges, they were all garbage. They were 34 charges that were essentially recurring payment felonies. Michael Cohen sent Trump an invoice for services rendered as part of a retainer agreement, felony 1. Trump enters that invoice into a bookkeeping log, felony 2. Trump pays the invoice, felony 3, times the different months of the year, multiple felonies. And they are bootstrapping this into a federal, a felony charge, some way that we don't even know why yet. And apparently we're going to have to hash that out at some point, but not yet. They're filing motions. We're waiting for Trump's team to file and for filing deadlines to challenge this entire case. And when those motions get filed, of course, we will go through them in detail. Trump has announced he's running in November last year, that he's running, has been prohibited in this trial from sharing any evidence turned over by the attorney's office during pre-trial discovery. In other words, the evidence that they claim they have against Trump, Trump cannot share that with us. We can't see it. So Trump, if he wanted to, if he, in a free country, in my opinion, he would be allowed to say, well, they're claiming that this is the evidence they have against me, and I want to show you this evidence. So you, America, can judge this. And let's be clear about this case. This is not a case that involves a victim. We're not invoking this rule to protect some innocent woman somewhere who was abused, who's going to have her name and reputation attacked and all the things. That's not that at all. This is a bookkeeping record. Who's the victim in this case? The state of New York, because something was misclassified on a spreadsheet somewhere? So the judge doing this is doing this to limit Trump from being able to defend himself, from being able to openly talk about the evidence in the case. That's what pretrial discovery is. When Trump can't talk about, this would be like if you got charged with a crime and they gave you a police report and you said, this police report is total garbage. I never pushed the guy. I never said this at all. And I never did that thing either. And you wanted to take that police report and put it on the internet and say, look, read it. You were there. You guys all were there. You saw it. Read it. And you tell me if the evidence is good. The judge says you can't do that. That's very sacred information. And that secret police report can't be shared. It's exactly what's happening here. Trump can't share it because they do not want him to defend himself. Now, the judge is going to say, well, you know, but this isn't a gag order. This isn't anything that really limits you. New York State Judge Juan imposed the protective order, but stopped short of imposing a gag order. It is not technically a gag order because Trump can talk about the case, but he can't talk about the evidence of the case, which is what Trump would want to talk about. Prosecutors requested the order after Trump criticized Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Oh, they don't like that when you talk badly about their garbage fake cases. So they asked the judge, can you please help us? And the judge says, sure, happy to. Trump can speak publicly about the case, but he can be held in contempt if he uses evidence that the prosecutors gave him to target witnesses or anyone else involved in the case. So now they're narrowing that down a little bit. On Tuesday, Trump appeared virtually on two big screens next to his attorney, Todd Blanche, during the hearing, and the judge asked Trump if he has a copy of the order. Trump says, yes, I do. We're going to go through the proceeding. Merchan then asked Blanche if he explained to Trump that it constitutes a mandate order, meaning if you violate this, there would be sanctions, right? Just so Trump is aware. I want you to hear it from me. And I swear, this judge would do it. They would hold him in contempt and put him in custody. I'm not kidding on that. I literally think that they would do it. We've already crossed the threshold. They keep telling us that this is just regular criminal law. They keep saying no one's above the law. They're telling us they are forecasting what they intend to do. And this is another historic photo in the wreckage that these political prosecutions are doing in America. And these photos will stick in the chronicle of history for a long time. I don't think Democrats have any idea what they're doing here. But Blanche said Trump has no issues with the protective order, but he's concerned that it can be used to silence him in the race. Blanche told the judge, he said he's very much concerned about his First Amendment rights are being violated by this order. He can't talk about the evidence that you say you have against him for business transactions. The judge said, well, hold on a minute. It's not a gag order. You just can't talk about the evidence. It's not my intention, he says, to impede Trump in the campaign, but he just can't violate the protective order. He's free to do just about anything that doesn't violate the specific terms of this order, which is all the things that Trump wants to talk about. The judge set a trial date, warned everybody, don't enter into any commitments that would interfere with these legal proceedings. We've got new dates. I've already got them on my calendar. August 29th was set for a defense motions deadline and October 10th for prosecution deadlines. And then judge is going to make decisions early next year, January 2024, on rulings. So it is also heating up in New York. And obviously that is not what Trump and his campaign want. But it's also not anything that Trump and his criminal team wants, because he can't even talk about the evidence. And so what happened in the proceeding? We go to inner city press reporting. At the proceeding in the Trump prosecution being brought by Alvin Bragg, Trump is already on the video screen. Inner city press at Inner City Press is in Juan Mercan's courtroom, tweets the following. Trump is on the screen, tapping his fingers together. 2 American flags behind him. New York City court's officers are patrolling the aisles of the courtroom. We're waiting for the judge to take the bench. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. The countdown continues, and the judge enters the screen. The courtroom. All rise. Trump on the screen in Florida does not stand. It was not requested. The protocol is unclear. The judge comes out and he says, okay, everybody, today is May 24th. The time is 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're here in the case of State of New York versus Donald Trump. Appearances, please. Trump's lawyers say, Your Honor, for President Trump, it's Susan Nicholas here. My colleague, Mr. Todd Blanche, is with President Trump here in Florida. Government prosecutor, losers, stand up. I'm Alvin Bragg's office, whatever. You know how they sound, like mumbles, terrible tonality. The judge says, okay, thanks for that, everybody. We are here now for a protective order. And everybody have copies in front of it? Yes, we do. Okay, great. Mr. Trump, I'm going to be reviewing this order with you here this morning. Do you have a copy of the protective order? Trump says, looking at it, yes, I do. Mr. Blanche, who's sitting right next to Donald Trump, have you reviewed the order with your client? Yes, Your Honor, I have. Anything not understood in that order in your conversation? No, Your Honor, we understand the order, but we do have objections, and we believe, quite frankly, that Mr. Trump's rights are being violated here. He's running for president. He's the leading contender in the primary, and that the protective order is in place, and it is stopping him and limiting him and prohibiting him from commenting on this case, which is a clear violation of his constitutional privileges under the First Amendment. And, Your Honor, we object to this continuation of this order. And the judge says, well, I understand that, but just so we're clear, I have no intention, and I do not mean to impede Mr. Trump's ability to campaign. That's not what I'm saying. Says, I don't think there's any need for me to be line by line through the protective order to go through each one of these things, but I don't think I'm inhibiting his ability to campaign, right? Do we need to go line by line? He says, no, I don't think so. I agree we don't. Says, okay. Now, did you explain to your client this order is a mandate of the court? Yes, Your Honor, I did. And he understands? Yes, he understands. And he understands that a violation of this order could result in a finding of contempt. Is that right? Yes. Mr. Trump, do you understand what I'm telling you here today? Yes, I do. Okay. Anything further? Nope. No. Defense, nothing from us, Your Honor. Government, nothing from us, Your Honor. Okay. So the judge got to drag in the former president and the current leading primary candidate for the presidency into court to sit him down and give him a nice little scold. You know who's in charge in my courtroom, don't you, sir? Mr. Trump, you're here, right? And you're going to obey my order and you're going to follow. And if you don't, I'm going to punish you, okay? You understand? Yep. Okay, we're done here. That's it. This is not unusual. It's unusual because this is the president. Judge says, all right, well, why I have everybody. I want to turn now to the issue about whether Mr. Tacopina, who we know from the E. Jean Carroll trial and others, is conflicted out of the case. Says, I am reviewing it. And now the motion in the trial schedule, so we'll see if Tacopina is going to be sticking around or not, says this case is set down for trial March 25th. We're going to commence jury selection then. Parties, including Mr. Trump, are directed, don't enter any other commitments. Better not be any debates there, Mr. Trump. Says there can be no substitution of counsel. So lawyers, you're not getting off the case. I want motions done by August 8th with decisions before the trial. I expect no delays here. Any questions from anybody? Trump's lawyer says, Your Honor, well, we agreed to the August 8th date for motions deadlines, but when we agreed to that date, we thought we would have discovery by now. So they don't even have the files. So we'd like an adjournment until the end of September. They want more time. They want a continuance to push it back. We haven't gotten any materials. We don't even know what they have in their files yet. So the judge says, prosecutors, what do you guys say? He says, well, we are serving the defense with notice and a hard drive of the first discovery materials. The original motion schedule was set for discovery to be given by June 8th, which is the statutory deadline, and we anticipate meeting that. So they've got discovery deadlines. After you have an arraignment, you've typically got discovery deadlines by certain periods of time, and then they comply with those. Trump's defense says, Your Honor, well, we'd still like more time. You know, I don't see the harm to the people here. We haven't even started looking at discovery. They haven't even given us a binder or folders or hard drives. And after we finalized the protective order, we asked for the discovery, but they told us no. Now we're 7 weeks out, and they're not giving us discovery. So you can see what the government is trying to do. They don't want to give them anything until the absolute end time. The prosecutors, I would imagine, have the discovery, but they're going to wait until June 8th. Why would we give it to Trump early? So they can start working on it? Get out of here. Nicholas says, I don't see the harm to the people. We asked for the discovery, but they said no. Now we're 7 weeks out. We're just sitting here twiddling our thumbs. So we want to push it back to September. But the judge says, no, well, that's going to eat into our cushion, and I need time to think between. So he goes, all right, look, not going to be August 8th. I'm going to extend it instead to August 29th. Prosecutors, will you be requesting 3 extra weeks? After that, he says, well, we'll take 6 weeks then, so push our date back to October 10th. Well, I don't have a calendar in front of me, you people. Then he gets the calendar. They set the next date for decisions on the motions, January. Anything further? Nothing. Says, well, we're adjourned. I'll see you back here later in October 10th. a long time until our next court date. So not going to see anything anytime soon over there. So Trump is obviously upset about this, as he should be. He is being so badly abused in this judicial process. It'll make you sick. But here's what he said on Truth Social. He said, just had New York County Supreme Court hearing where I believe my First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, have been violated. And they forced upon us a trial date of March 25th, right in the middle of primary season. Very unfair. But this is exactly what the radical left Democrats wanted. It's called election interference, and they're using the full weight of the government to do it. And nothing like this has ever happened in our country before over bookkeeping records in New York. And that's just one little pawn that they are moving in New York. We have another little pawn that they're moving in Georgia. This, you may remember, is Fani Willis, the fanniest of all the fannies in Georgia. And she's also signaling more Trump charges coming in August. The Fulton County District Attorney said most of her staff would work remotely. They're afraid of getting insurrected, and asked judges not to schedule trials for the first half of August. She spent more than 2 years investigating Trump, and she is now announcing remote work for her staff the first 3 weeks of August because of what they're about to unveil. Asking judges in the courthouse, don't schedule trials. We're going to be bringing charges in this inquiry. They're expecting the grand jury to unseal indictments during that period. She said in a previous letter that she was contemplating charges, but now August dials in the timetable. Miss Willis Fannie has spent more than 2 years investigating Donald Trump, been presenting evidence to a grand jury. And it's looking like this may be another effort in another location to continue to bring Trump down. And so the various state prosecutors are not letting up. They want their pound of flesh, and they're going to continue to try to get it. And so, my friends, we are about to jump into a preview because we have in about 17 minutes Ron DeSantis and Elon Musk hopping onto a Twitter space to share an announcement. And so let's take a look at what actually is happening here. Ron DeSantis announced his intention to run for president. And apparently in a few minutes, he's going to fully announce that soon. But this is the teaser preview for Ron DeSantis' announcement that we're about to hear, I expect, shortly.
They call it faith because in the face of darkness, you can see that brighter future. A faith that our best days lay ahead of us. But is it worth the fight? Do I have the courage? Is it worth the sacrifice? America has been worth it. Every single time.
All right, so we're going to hear a lot more, obviously, here in a little bit. And something interesting is happening because they're making this announcement on Twitter. And Twitter is a new free speech platform. And I like the fact that they're doing it on Twitter and not on another platform like, Fox News or something like that. I think it's a good thing. And it is a good move for DeSantis. And we're going to see, of course, what Trump says. And a big question is going to be, what does Trump do? Does Trump come back to Twitter? And how does this all look for us? But Alex at ALX on Twitter is confirming for us what's going to be happening here in just a few minutes. Here is what Elon said.
Time, I think it would be probably correct.
Okay.
Yes, I will be interviewing Ron DeSantis, and he has quite an announcement to make. And it'll be the first time that something like this is happening on social media, and with real-time questions and answers, not scripted.
Yeah, so that'll be curious to see. And of course, there's going to be a lot of reaction to this, and we are right in the middle of primary season, and things are going to get bloody, and the Trump people are going to be slicing and dicing over at the DeSantis people and vice versa. And we've seen a lot of that on Twitter. And so the big question is, who is going to come out unscathed, and what is this going to look like? Now, my take on the battle on a lot of this is that I hope that it's all all above board, that at the end of this battle, at the end of this bloody battle, that the two sides can come back and reunify, and we can take back and win control of the levers of power in this country. Ultimately is the end game as far as I'm concerned. But we also have to understand that we are in primary season, and it's time to take out the elbows and start duking it out. And I think ultimately that's a good thing, as long as at the end we can all come back together again and remember that the opponent here are the Democrats and not other Republicans. And ultimately, I think a spirited, healthy primary season are useful and good. And we're going to have a lot to unpack and a lot to cover here. And so we're going to do that. We're going to try to be fair to everybody and ask questions and see what kind of issues they dig into. And I've got a lot of questions about Ron and about his candidacy and what his vision for America is. Obviously, not from Florida, don't live in Florida. Been hearing a lot of things that we like to hear, but we've also been seeing some other connections and relationships with Ron DeSantis and other people in the Jeb Bush vein that are troubling, and we don't like those connections. And so we're going to be taking a look at it. We've talked about Vivek here and some of the other candidates, and we're curious to see what happens. But the big first issue is, how does DeSantis beat Donald Trump? What's the plan for that? Because currently, according to a lot of polls, he is not close. He's down by about 20 percentage points, which of course many people will say it's still very early. This is the first day he's announcing, but it does raise a lot of good questions. They are responding. They say they do have a plan. Here's what it looks like. DeSantis allies have a $200 million plan for beating Trump. Whew, that's a lot. Governor is preparing to enter the race, and we are going to be taking a look at the Twitter Spaces and listening into that here in a short minute. His allies are building an army of organizers to flood the states with the first nominating contests. A key political group supporting DeSantis is preparing a $100 million voter outreach push. Knock on the doors in at least 3 states 4 times. It's going to knock on the door of every possible DeSantis voter at least 4 times in New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. That's a lot. And 5 times in the Iowa caucuses. So could be the same pattern that we saw, in prior primaries, where they just duke it out for each one of these states. And the question becomes, what happens if Trump loses a couple of those early states? Does it turn into a situation like Clinton? Do we have a primary season like a Clinton-Obama, where everybody thinks that Trump is the heir apparent, and then we fast forward and that is not the case? We'll see. But the difference here is Hillary Clinton wasn't a former president. So it was an open primary, much more so than it feels like it is now. The effort is part of an on-the-ground organizing operation that intends to hire more than 2,600 field organizers by Labor Day. Top officials in the group, a super PAC called Never Back Down, provided their most detailed account yet of their battle plan to aid Mr. DeSantis, whom they say is the only one that can take on and win the cultural fights that are definitional to the Republican Party. The group said it expected to have an overall budget of at least $200 million, including more than $80 million to be transferred from an old DeSantis state political account for the daunting task of vaulting the Florida governor past Trump, who is obviously the early dominant frontrunner. They say DeSantis is going to be stepping into the race on Wednesday. We're going to jump into this conversation in just a few minutes. The group is already taking on many tasks reserved for the campaign, securing endorsements, organizing on campuses, running ads. Hiring is underway in 18 states. The group's team is called Chris Jankowitzki. In Iowa, the group has opened up a boot camp on the outskirts of Des Moines. And they're trying to echo what Senator Ted Cruz was doing previously. And so let's take a look at what some of the reaction is. So people in Trump's camp are asking good questions. Kari Lake commented on this, as did Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is what we would call some pre-buttal. Before the announcement, we've got people who are fans of Donald Trump and supporting his candidacy are out there pre-butting the announcement. And so there's been a lot of that on Twitter. Here is what Marjorie said.
DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is going to announce that he's finally running for president, even though he's been running for president for months and months. And the whole thing has been pretty much a joke. Unfortunately, Ron DeSantis has been like that kid walking around the swimming pool, scared to jump in the water because he's afraid the water is too cold. Well, let me go ahead and say the water is too cold for you, Governor DeSantis, unfortunately, because the polling shows that America wants President Trump back in the White House. And here's what I really hate. I think you've been played by a bunch of your consultants that just want to make money off of you running for president because they're the only ones that will benefit out of this. You know, Governor DeSantis is a great governor for the state of Florida. We need more strong Republicans.
He's done a very good job, in Florida. Tell me, tonight he's got the oligarchs ball. He's got David Sachs and Elon Musk on Twitter for his announcement. David Sachs, who was the guy that pushed the Silicon Valley Bank bailout for the high-tech guys, which he's won to save himself money. How's that going to sit with the populist nationalists and Elon Musk, Mr. Davos, World Economic Forum, transhumanist extraordinaire with Neuralink and also with artificial intelligence? How's that going to sit with real voters in the populist nationalist Republican Party, ma'am?
That doesn't sit well at all. That is not going to fly. I'm going to tell you right now. Who do you need to elect you to be president? You need the American people. You don't need the oligarchs. That's not how elections work. And I'll say something else, Steve. God bless President Trump for traveling all over America. I mean, I don't even know how many rallies he's done. The numbers are off the charts, and he goes every single time to the people, Steve. He goes directly to the people. He stands on a stage, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, whether it's windy, whether it's raining, no matter the weather, President Trump is out there directly talking to the American people right in front of them in person, and they come out by the thousands and tens of thousands, and he has been doing this for years. You don't announce that you're running for president of the United States in some kind of little Twitter world. It's not a real world. Twitter is not real. So I can't comprehend why that would be the place to do the announcement. It makes no sense to me, and it's not serious.
So that is an interesting line of criticism from Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think that Twitter is an interesting way to do it. I actually like Twitter because it's not the mainstream media. It's not him showing up on some Fox event or something like that that would give them the eyeballs because they censor people. And the theory is that Elon is not going to be doing that. Of course, people are now being curious or concerned about Elon and his recent hires and the new CEO coming in. And so we're all constantly orienting ourselves. Here is Kari Lake. She also had a comment about Ron DeSantis coming in, signing on into the race.
Trump is brilliant. He works the media to perfection. But this whole idea of the fight that is going on down here in Florida between Governor DeSantis and Disney, I mean, it represents so much for conservatives. I mean, they love what DeSantis is doing, kind of muting Disney a little bit against all their woke nonsense. And Trump somehow kind of got behind Disney a little bit on that. Do you think it's something that maybe he should, I don't know, move a little bit in favor of against Disney and in favor of DeSantis, or am I missing something?
Well, Eric, I believe that fighting woke is a worthy cause. Absolutely. There are a few things more important, honestly, than stopping the radical indoctrination and, frankly, the sexual mutilation of our children. But we can't do it half-assed. when you pick a fight with Disney, you need to play to win. And so far, Governor DeSantis has been outworked and outmaneuvered by Disney. As far as I know, Reedy Creek still exists. They're still hosting trans events at their park. This indoctrination is continuing, and they're actually rubbing it in the faces of American families. You know, if you can't beat Donald Duck, how are you going to beat Donald Trump? I think that's the question we have to ask when it comes to Governor DeSantis. And I think he should stay in Florida and continue fighting for the people there and try to finish that fight. I'd rather see President Trump, who's a deal maker who can make things happen, take on woke corporations. And I know for a fact he gets results.
All right, so that's Kari Lake weighing in on it. And so obviously the Trump side is coming out and they're taking shots at Ron DeSantis, which is exactly what you would expect. And so we're waiting to see if there is a Twitter space that is firing up anywhere. And if anybody sees one, I appreciate you letting me know. But here are some of the polls that came out over from Real Clear Politics. And here is what we see. Recently from CNN, Republican presidential nomination primary, Trump is up plus 27 in this poll, which is a pretty whopping number. Here's what we've got. Trump plus 34 in the presidential nominee numbers, and they're holding pretty steady. So we're going to see if there's a big change at any time. In fact, it looks like DeSantis recently has been declining recently. So we'll see if this changes or adjusts anytime soon. So we've got that. Now, I wanted to also share, there was another couple questions. Vivek, who is also running for president, had this question about this conversation and about this announcements from Ron DeSantis. Says, interested to know whether Ron DeSantis would have supported the bailout of Silicon Valley Bank depositors, since his mega donor, David Sachs, was the most vocal supporter of that bailout, and he's moderating the Twitter spaces with Ron tonight. He should ask a legitimate policy question for a presidential candidate. Yeah, we're curious about that. What would Ron say about it? And maybe he will get that question. I'm curious who Elon is going to invite up. Here we go. Thank you, John McGarvey. Preparing to launch today at 3 p.m. That's in 2 minutes. Should be interesting. And we're going to listen in live. Now, as we await it, let's say hello to you, my friends. See who is in the chat today. Preparing to launch is Elon, preparing to launch Ron DeSantis, his campaign, and his presidency. That's hopefully this is today, right? It should be any minute now, hopefully. We've got, who's in the house? I just saw, what's up, Christian? Christian W says, hey, Robert, what's up, Christian? Bat Lady just got here. Ray Taylor says, no way, Jose. Clean up your acts there. What's up, V? Nathan, N810 says, Twitter announcement may mean we see more Twitter political stuff. That could mean other candidates getting airtime like RFK. Right. Indeed. Since the cable news is all about censorship now. Yeah. The Overton window keeps moving. Or maybe Elon's launching into space. I don't know. Jay Cutber says, been battling his family about book banning in Florida. Mad Cow's here from Australia. Super cool. Let's do a refresh on this screen. and see if they're kicking this thing off live. There it is. All right. Now, sometimes it takes a minute for the audio to come in. As they launch. We don't see anybody talking. But guess who's here? Linda Yaccarino. She's the new incoming CEO of Twitter. We're waiting for Ron DeSantis. Is he going to be here? Where's Ron? Jenna Ellis is there. Bill Malugin from Fox News is in the house. What's up to Citizen Free Press? Shout out to Citizen Free Press. They do great work over there. Who else? Ron DeSantis is now in the house, making his way in. And we're waiting for this puppy to fire up. Where's the host? It's probably about a gazillion people trying to log in. And look at this. I'm having an error on my phone, right? So I wonder if it's just broken. This one says, could not fetch the space. See that? Could not even fetch the space. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of people trying to get in. Here's what my screen says. Yeah, John's got it too. Could not fetch the space. Uh-oh. Let's try this again. Still don't think anybody's speaking quite yet. All right, there it goes. Now we're working. The topic from Twitter tonight is Ron DeSantis. Oh, if you're not joining us here, Ron DeSantis is running for president. And he is now in the Twitter chat. We're waiting for the space to get kicked off. And David Sachs, he does the All In podcast with a couple other guys. Ron DeSantis is now up on the top line of the stage. Still not hearing any audio. Uncle Shane says the Daily Caller just said DeSantis officially launches. I think that's what this is all about. Ill War says, I'm predicting this announcement is going to be like his run, a mess. Samantha Richardson says, I would laugh if it was something totally different, but we all know he's running for POTUS. Vientica says, glad I don't pay for Twitter Blue. Zulu says, devouring themselves from within. Excellent. Kimmy Deary saying this is kind of looking like a fail. Well, it's been a few minutes. Hopefully the technology works. That would be not good if the technology didn't work. 115,000 people in the space, but nobody's talking still, right? I'm listening here too. Yeah. Hold on a minute. Thought I heard a noise. Volcano. Yeah. Elon's got 140 million followers. It's a lot. Is the new Twitter CEO, is she actually in? She actually... Oh, guess who just took over? Ron DeSantis, baby. Your boy's up in the lead now. Your boy's up in third position. That's right, baby. I'm here. I can answer any questions that you have for me. Yeah, I'll fix this country. What do you got for me? Pull me on stage, Elon. We're ready. I'm ready. Let's go. Come on, Elon. But you can see Ron DeSantis, they bumped him down to the second row. It's your boy and Tommy hanging out with Elon and David. All right, let's go. Let's go. I heard another noise. I see Laura Ingram's in the house. Christina Pushaw, she's with the DeSantis camp. All these amazing people. Hey! Oh, that's on their end, not our end. That's on their end, not our end.
Now it's quiet.
Okay, now it's quiet. I think that was that Ron? David Sachs.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, everyone, depending on wherever in the world you're joining us from. I'm broadcasting live from Twitter headquarters. It's David Sachs here. Elon is sitting next to me, and we want to welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history of social media. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the.
Uh-oh. There's no audio coming out of that. Is that me or is that them? I think that's them. Yeah, they're both connecting again. Here, they're back. Uh-oh.
All right, sorry about that. We've got so many people here that I think we are kind of melting the servers, which is a good sign. All right, I'd like to just introduce the folks in the room here. So it's safe to say we wouldn't be making history without the man sitting next to me, Elon Musk. His decision to purchase this platform last year to restore it to its original mission as a beacon for free speech, and even to expose Twitter's past complicity with a government censorship regime might have surprised many, but not those of us who've known and worked with Elon for nearly a quarter century. His commitment to freedom and his willingness to put his money where his mouth is upset the narrative imposed on us by our government, elite institutions, and corporate media. Go ahead and send a heart up if you want to say thank you, Elon.
Thank you, Elon.
Governor DeSantis first drew my attention and support when I saw how he responded to the COVID pandemic and refused to believe what we now know to be the many falsehoods that government experts and their media mouthpieces were feeding us. He kept Florida's schools open and its economy thriving, while my state of California chose 2 years of learning loss and lockdowns that we have yet to fully.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He's talking about lockdowns here. I'll pick it up for a sec. Lockdowns. He did a great job on lockdowns. Didn't lock down, maybe lockdown. I don't know what they did in Florida, but Elon's great and Ron DeSantis is great. And we're happy you're here with us all. And they're working on the servers. They're yelling at engineering right now. They're saying, Linda, new CEO, what are you doing back there? She needs everything she's got. Linda, turn it up. Crank it up. Turn the wheels, man. All right. So David Sachs just got ejected, and Ron DeSantis is still in there. He's like, the hell's going on over here? The heck's going on here? Yeah, gosh, my host just got ejected from the game. Uh-oh. This is not looking too good. They're going to figure it out. All right. Everybody at Twitter HQ is having a panic attack right now. It's like that scene from Community. Here, let's take a look. Does anybody have any gifts about what's happening at Twitter servers right now? Anybody have any gifts about Twitter servers right now? I think there might be some problems.
Let's see. So, we on? Yeah, I think so.
Just to simplify this.
All right, so they're connecting the tubes, man. You know what the problem is? I guarantee you the feds are in their tubes too. I have my own tubes problem here all the time, and now they've got their own tubes problems. Elon's like, gosh, dang it, we connected that bone to the other bone, the hip bones, and they've got leaf blower guys are in their FBI agents. It's just total madness. So we're going to cut them some slack a little bit. It's historic, and it's a historic thing that's happening right now. And we're back.
Wow, there's 382,000 people in the room. All right, great. So let's see.
We're back, Elon. Don't worry about it. Happens all the time to me. You're good.
Yeah, I think we've got just a massive number of people online, so it's servers are straining somewhat.
Hey, I'm hanging out with Elon. We're right next to each other. All right, somebody tell Elon his mic is on while they're troubleshooting this thing. All right. How many people are in here? 374,000 are in the space. Woo! Oh, gosh. So Elon is still trying to figure it out. Ron DeSantis is in the house. I'm ready for questions, just so you know, Elon. I'm right next to you. I'm the one right next to you on my screen. We're ready for it. All right.
Like this someday. All right, we're just reallocating more server capability to be able to handle load here.
That's what I do all the time.
Going crazy. So, I'm obviously very excited to have Governor DeSantis make this.
Oh, this isn't good. This isn't good. I'm not happy about this. Yeah. I have my own, I get frustrated as well. When my tubes aren't working, man, when we're trying to do the show here and it's like the internet is just not working and I feel these guys' pain, man. I really empathize with what's happening here. And it's just me oftentimes, But I get panicky too. I'm like, connect the tubes, man. I'm like unplugging and replugging in and I'm restarting and rebooting this thing. And I'm try to restart it, Elon. Turn it off and turn it on again. Just reboot it. Usually works for me. Just reboot the system. Or hit it. Blowing it too. That used to work when I was a kid. You just pull the thing out, give it a little, and then shove it back in and it'll work. Sometimes. Just try it. Let me know if you need some help. I'll walk you through it. All right. Well, put some Windex on it. All right. Well, I guess we'll just keep waiting, I suppose. I just reboot it, just reboot it. Press start select a couple times. Press escape, Control Alt Delete. Try those, man. Control Alt Delete, F4, exit. Got to get new tubes, man. Once I upgraded my cables, things started to work better here. Maybe it's a cable problem. All right. Well, I'm going to get on chat support on Twitter. We're going to get over on chat support, and we're going to see what they're up to over there. Hey, you guys know your Twitter Spaces isn't working. Hello? We're trying to do a show here. Hello? All right, so on the app, yeah, so on the app now, this is saying that Ron DeSantis is still connecting. Yeah, it's not ideal. Yeah, and DeSantis is coming in and out. I don't know if they're at the same location or how the rest of Twitter is working. In the meantime, Ron DeSantis just published this. I'm sure his team is not happy about what's happening right now. In all seriousness, it's like they're probably not happy about it. And I'm wondering if the media is dunking on this in any way. Probably. Here's what Ron DeSantis published while we're waiting for the space.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
Okay, so, nice message. Feels a little bit forced to me, new. It's kind of like, I don't know, new pair of underwear. You're like, this is a little bit awkward, a little bit weird, a little bit strange, but okay, let's see how it works out, kind of one of those things. It's brand new, and we're trying on Ron DeSantis presidency, see how that works, but the Twitter space is still down, and we're trying to figure out exactly why that is. Yeah, what was it about that ad? Did he feel a little tense or a little forced? Yeah, so Twitter's not working right now, as we can see. And we were trying to figure out what's going on over there, and I think this is what the server room looks like. Elon just walked into the server room, and this is what they found. That's server HQ at Twitter, which is a bummer. But okay, there, you're hearing him again? Oops. I still don't hear him. All right, and we're trying now to actually browse Twitter, like what the heck is going on here. Cernovich has a good take, as usual. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. People crying for having to wait a few extra minutes for 500,000 people. LOL, first they said no one would care. Now they say too many care. Such nonsense. Yeah. He's probably talking about, we're having fun with it, but we're perfectly fine waiting for it. This is part of the deal. Look, the news companies, okay, the mainstream media companies, they've been doing this crap for I don't know, 60, 70 years. Longer than that, 100 years. So there's going to be some hiccups in this stuff. And quite frankly, I like this stuff. I like the fact that people are tinkering around and trying new things and experimenting. And yeah, all that's happening is more people are waiting for the anticipation. We're at now 675,000. So yeah, it's fun to have fun when stuff doesn't work. You got to laugh at yourself when your stuff doesn't work, and you got to make fun of yourself when your big debuts, when you fall on your face. The only thing you can do is laugh on it and laugh about it. And who cares? And we're going to get it done. And they're booting up the server. Linda's back there right now. Elon got out his drill and his hammer, and he's at all over the place in the back room. And they're plugging the cables in. It's like that scene out of a movie. And they just ended the space. All right. So that means there's going to be a new one coming soon, which is going to be great. And so we're just going to keep hanging out for it. We're just going to hang out and see if there's another post. Oh, no, Scott Adams. Oh, brutal. Here's a good one. DeSilence. Oh, here they come. Here they come. We knew it was going to be coming. Drops it like it's hot. DeSilence. Oh, that's a Scott Adams tweet indeed. Came out of the gate on that one. All right, let's see if they're booting back up. That one was recorded, so they're booting everything up. We saw this one. Oh yeah, here's another scene from the server room over there at Twitter HQ. You know, that's what's going on over there. And hopefully they get that fixed soon. Got to upgrade the RAM. Once you upgrade the RAM, that's going to fix that problem. Got to get the RAM updated. They should just download some more, probably. Just download some more RAM right off the internet, upgrade your systems, and then everything will work out. So we need update the drivers. Yeah, Circus is right. You got to update your drivers. Elon, update your drivers. Somebody tweet him. All right, tweet Elon. Update your drivers and clear your cache. And it'll start to work. Oh, no. Okay, so hopefully they're getting it together. I'm sure, like, really, I'm sure they're really unhappy about this over there. I'm empathizing with them, all right? We're laughing with them, hopefully. We're empathizing with them. Okay, these people are building a whole infrastructure that we're going to need in 2024 pretty badly. So take your time, fellas. We'll still be here. We were planning on being here for a while anyways, so we'll be here. All right, let's say hello while we're waiting. I saw a couple super chats come in. Thank you, everybody, for sending those in. Who do we have here first off? Michael Swade says, screw this announcement. We all know what he's going to say. We all know what he's going to lose the primary, no matter how much they try to stop him. And this is going to be a great question. And we were talking about, well, what is, if the trust in our elections is so decimated, that's the general elections, Michael Swade. What about the primaries? Are people even going to believe the primaries? I'm not sure. And if that's what happens, I mean, it could be just, madness from day one. All right, Elon, another Twitter Spaces just got launched, but still booting that up. Those tubes are getting warmed. He's probably sick of people hitting refresh like me. Oh, they're back.
All
right, we got a new
broadcasting. Man, I think we melted the internet there.
You did.
Yeah, that was insane. Sorry. We actually doing this from David Sachs's Twitter account because it looks like doing it from mine basically broke the Twitter system.
Nice.
Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. We're incredibly excited to announce to have Governor DeSantis
No problem.
on with us with this historic announcement.
Got the tubes.
And then look forward to live Q&A from the audience. So, with that.
Yeah, I mean, so Governor DeSantis, are you there? Can you hear us? I think you broke.
I'm here.
Excellent. I know. I think you broke the internet there. We had over 500,000 people in one Twitter space, and it was growing by like 50,000 a minute. So, congrats on breaking the internet there.
Well, yeah. Try some new things. You're gonna.
Yes.
It's adventurous. So
yes.
But
So
I think the value here is actually
right
really
on.
high for people to hear directly from presidential candidates and to answer a Q&A live, and you can get a sense for how a candidate really is, and where it's not just canned speeches and teleprompters. It's in fact, you can tell by the some of the mistakes that it's real.
That's right. I totally agree with that. I love it. Love tinkering.
With that, I
Love
guess
it.
I should turn it over.
And they figured it out. See, the
to,
tinkerers figured it
yeah.
out.
Well, let's see. So, yeah, Governor, there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of months about your plans. I understand that you may have an announcement to make. We've got, I think, a record audience assembled here. Probably the biggest room that's probably ever been assembled online. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes and we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country. Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges, and he takes his cues from the woke mob. I don't think it has to be this way. American decline is not inevitable. It is a choice, and we should choose a new direction, a path that will lead to American revitalization. We must restore sanity to our nation. This means embracing fiscal and economic sanity. Stop pricing hardworking Americans out of a good standard of living through inflationary borrow, print, and spending policies, and please embrace American energy independence. This also means replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles. Merit must trump identity politics. We must return normalcy to our communities. America's a sovereign country. Our borders must be respected. We cannot have foreigners pouring into our country illegally by the millions. We cannot allow drug cartels to poison our population with fentanyl. Public deserves safe communities, and law and order must be maintained in American cities. We can't have inmates running the asylum, and we must reject attacks on the men and women of law enforcement. We also must reestablish integrity in our institutions. This includes the military. I'm proud to be a Navy veteran, an Iraq veteran, and I revere our services. But when revered institutions like those in our military are more concerned with matters not central to the mission, whether it's global warming or gender ideology and pronouns, morale declines and recruiting suffers. And you need to eliminate these distractions, and we need to get focused on the core mission. We also cannot have true constitutional government if the most significant issues are decided by the whims of unelected bureaucrats rather than the people's elected representatives. Reestablishing integrity in our institutions means we must reinvigorate our constitutional system by returning the government to its rightful owners, we the people. No social or economic transformation without representation. Truth needs to be our foundation. Common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. And in Florida, we proved it could be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. And we're thriving as a result. Florida is the nation's fastest growing state. We're number one in net in-migration, number one in new business formations, recently ranked number one in education. We have a 50-year low crime rate and one of the lowest tax and debt per capita in America. But we also understand governing is not entertainment. It's not about building a brand or virtue signaling. It is about delivering results. And our results in Florida have been second to none. We can and we must deliver big results for America. I pledge to be an energetic executive that will take on the important issues. Biden's pursued inflationary policies that are hurting working people. We will reverse those policies and we'll build an economy where working Americans can achieve a good standard of living. Biden's opened the southern border and allowed massive amounts of drugs to pour into the country. We'll shut down the border, construct a border wall, and hold the drug cartels accountable. Biden's embraced medical authoritarianism, such as unconstitutional COVID vax mandates. We will ensure that those violations of liberty can never happen again. Biden's allowed woke ideology to drive his agenda. We will never surrender to the woke mob, and we will leave woke ideology in the dustbin of history. Biden's also politicized the military and caused recruiting to plummet. We will eliminate ideological agendas from our military, focus the military on the core mission, and we will reverse the poor recruiting trends. Finally, Biden's weaponized the power of the administrative state to advance his left-wing agenda. We will reconstitutionalize the executive branch, and we'll bring the administrative state to heel. Now, you can't do any of that if you don't win. There is no substitute for victory. We must end the culture of losing that has infected the Republican Party in recent years. The tired dogmas of the past are inadequate for a vibrant future. We must look forward, not backwards. We need the courage to lead, and we must have the strength to win. And to voters who are participating in this primary process, my pledge to you is this. If you nominate me, you can set your clock to January 20th, 2025 at high noon, because on the west side of the U.S. Capitol, I will be taking the oath of office as the 47th President of the United States. No excuses. I will get the job done. Now, these past few years have given me a new appreciation for the fragility of our freedoms. I never thought I would see things in America that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, but our founding fathers were keenly aware of the fragility of freedom. When they framed our Constitution, they came armed with having studied the history of every republic and the history of mankind. And they noticed that all of those experiments only had one thing in common, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed. And so they knew it fell to our country, the United States of America, to determine whether people could really govern themselves. Could we have a society based on the idea that our rights are God-given, not government-granted, and that society functions based on the rule of law, not the rule of individual men? And when Dr. Benjamin Franklin walked out of that convention, he was asked, did you deliver a republic or a monarchy? He said, a republic if you can keep it. They knew freedom didn't run on autopilot. They knew each generation would have a responsibility to safeguard freedom, and it's our responsibility to do so at this important juncture in our nation's history. We have a lot of work to do to ensure the country gets back on track. I ask everybody listening to please join me on this mission. Please invest in our campaign by going to rondesantis.com and making a donation. Thank you. God bless, and I look forward to the discussion.
Interesting.
All right, thank you, Governor. Appreciate that. I guess just as a first follow-up here, thank you for putting up with these technical issues. I think we're definitely breaking new ground here. As far as I know, no major presidential candidate has ever announced their candidacy on social media this way, certainly in a Twitter space. So thank you for doing that. What made you want to kind of take the chance of doing it this way, as opposed to just doing it on cable news?
It is risky.
The usual way.
No applause, no energy.
Well, when COVID hit, I had to make decisions about, do you go with the crowd or do you look at the data yourself and cut against the grain? And I chose to do the latter. I faced huge blowback for doing that from the bureaucracy, from elites, from the media. But my view was I had to look out for the people I represented, prefer protecting their jobs over trying to safeguard my own political hide. But it was very, very lonely in a lot of those decisions. And part of the reason it was so lonely is because there was a concerted effort to try to stifle dissent. There was an official narrative about lockdowns, about closing schools, about forced masking, about all these different things that we had to navigate during COVID. And it was an orthodoxy being enforced by the major tech platforms in conjunction with the federal government. And if we can't have an honest debate in a free country about issues that affect hundreds of millions of people, like lockdowns, then what good is the First Amendment at that point? Those are precisely the times when we needed to have debate be robust. You should not be taking down articles that criticize those draconian policies, and yet that's exactly what happened. So it occurred to me that if that had continued, I think free speech in this country was on its way out the door. And so when Elon Musk stepped up to purchase Twitter, he paid a lot of money for it. And I'm sure because he's a good businessman, Elon, I'm sure you'll end up making money off it. But bottom line is you had to put your money where your mouth is, because I think you recognize that You can't have a free society unless we have the freedom to debate the most important issues that are affecting our civilization. That did not happen during COVID. The truth was censored repeatedly. And now that Twitter is in the hands of a free speech advocate, that would not be able to happen again on this Twitter platform. So I think what was done with Twitter is really significant for the future of our country.
It is good.
We cannot have a society in which government is colluding with major tech platforms to enforce an orthodoxy.
I like that he's
thank
talking
you.
about that.
Yeah, we're absolutely committed to freedom of speech and a level playing field, and just a vigorous debate. And hopefully this can be a platform that brings people of divergent political views to exchange those views, and perhaps some minds will be changed one way or the other. And but it's just incredibly important, as you highlight, that the First Amendment is irrelevant if all the media and all the government are operating in lockstep. It makes the most important amendment, the one that was most urgently added to the Constitution, moot if you cannot have free and open debate.
It's critical.
So Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless.
All right.
Awesome.
We'd like to...
Thank you. So, Governor, I'm going to ask some questions while we get some other kind of speakers in the queue to ask questions. I think maybe some people knew this announcement was coming because there's been no shortage of hit pieces on you in the press over the last week or two. I want to ask you about some of these accusations that are being leveled at you. Last week, the NAACP issued a travel advisory against your state, claiming that Florida is not a safe place for minorities to visit. What do you say to those who've been advised that somehow they aren't welcome in your state?
Claiming that Florida is unsafe is a total farce. I mean, are you kidding me? You look at cities around this country, they are awash in crime. In Florida, our crime rate is at a 50-year low. If you look at the top 25 cities for crime in America, Florida does not have a single one amongst the top 25. And if you look at cities like Baltimore and Chicago, you got kids more likely to get shot than to receive a first-class education. Yet I don't see the NAACP batting an eye about all the outrage and the carnage that's happening in those areas. So this is a political stunt. These left-wing groups have been doing it for many, many years. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is colluding with legacy media to try to manufacture a narrative. Now, the good news is fewer and fewer Americans are gullible enough to believe this dribble. And platforms like Twitter are there where people can debunk these lies in real time. And I would just say, as an American citizen, if you are uncritically accepting narratives spun by legacy media and left-wing groups, you're failing at your job of being a conscientious citizen. And I think people just see right through it. And oh, by the way, have any of these travel advisories, because they've been doing this for a while, all these left-wing groups, have any of them worked? Well, we're the #1 state for net in-migration and have been every year since I've been governor. We just capped the highest quarter for tourism in the history of the state of Florida. And our view is we want everybody to succeed regardless of their skin color. We don't divvy up people by race. At the same time, it is worth pointing out that we have in Florida more Black-owned businesses than any state in the nation. And we've also had more African Americans lead state agencies under my administration than at any time in Florida history. But with us, they're there because of merit, not because we're trying to play identity politics. And if you want to look at education, the Black students in Florida perform much higher than Black students in most other states. We rank #3 in 4th grade reading and #2 in 4th grade math amongst our Black student population. And oh, by the way, the head of the NAACP lives in Florida, and a lot of their board members have put out on social media during my governorship Florida vacations where they seem to be having an awful good time.
That's great. Well, I mean, Florida's a great state, and I think the people realize that. Some of the things that are being said are just truly absurd. I mean, I saw some headline from The Atlantic basically claiming that anyone who listens to this Spaces on Twitter is basically a Nazi.
Or that was the Atlantic, and then
yeah.
Vanity Fair said that that you were hosting or interviewing because David Duke wasn't available.
Oh yes.
Although I'm not totally sure who they were saying was David Duke. I don't know if it was you or Governor DeSantis. It's sort of a little bit unclear, but
I think this is a function of the legacy media, these corporate journals. They're in their little bubble. And to draw allusions to stuff like that, I mean, how crazy do you have to be? But in their little bubble, it sounds like they're making some type of profound point. And so part of, I think, what Twitter is standing for is people should be exposed to different viewpoints. And I think the elites in our society have tried to cluster themselves to where their assumptions are never challenged. And that's not a good way, I think, to live. It's also not a good way to be a critical thinker, because no one's ever going to question obviously wrong assumptions, because everybody around you shares them.
Absolutely.
And I think they become totally hysterical because they don't like the idea that their control over the media is being, disintermediated.
Yeah.
Because now, candidates for president can just speak directly to people through platforms like Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing about Twitter and things like Spaces are that, although I happen to be hosting it, I had to switch over to David hosting it because my account was actually
there's too much interest. But
my account was breaking the system. But there's really never been a mechanism before where someone could address the nation, or anyone who wanted to listen to them could, from anywhere in the world. United States or anywhere. So I think this is a really profound change. And it's also like it's not just whether the media reports something and an article is true or not. Even more powerful is deciding what the narrative is. And
totally.
so, it's just like, if there's only so much you can actually fit in a newspaper or a magazine, and there's only one thing you can really put on the cover of a magazine. So that whoever's deciding that is deciding to not talk about other things. Whereas with a public digital town square like we have here, it's possible for the public to choose the narrative. It empowers the people instead of a very tiny elite cabal, which I don't recognize the irony of me using that phrase. But nonetheless, it's true, and you judge by the results that this is a means for the people to decide the narrative, and for the people to decide which way a debate will go, not sort of 5 editors-in-chiefs of a few newspapers, basically.
Yeah, and I think one of the really crazy things that happened during COVID is that social networks really started censoring dissenting viewpoints on COVID, medical viewpoints that ended up being totally correct in lockstep with what the mainstream media was doing. So basically, big tech platforms were undermining their main reason for existing, which is giving people a choice. And actually, there's somebody who I think knows more about that than any of us, which is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who's a professor of medicine at Stanford. I want to pull him in here. Jay, you go ahead and unmute yourself if you can. It'd be great to hear from you. I know that during COVID, you worked with Governor DeSantis. It'd be great just to hear a little bit about your interactions and if you have a question for the governor.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute honor to work with Governor DeSantis, and I was really impressed by his decision making in the face of an absolute firestorm of criticism. But Governor, you did the right thing when you opened the schools. And my kids in California for a year and a half didn't see the inside of a classroom, whereas Florida kids were in school. And you can see it in the results, and the learning loss numbers are so much better in Florida. I'm really curious, Governor, as you're running for president, what are your thoughts about reforming, the public health authority in the United States and the federal government, the CDC, the FDA, the NIH? How do you see the reforms we need so that the mistakes of the lockdowns that happened during the pandemic don't happen again when there's another pandemic?
Get to the FBI, DOJ,
well, first,
DHS
we need
too.
an honest reckoning about what happened during COVID. And the only honest reckoning is that all of those agencies, all of the elites, the public health establishment, they failed. They instituted bad policies. Obviously, it's a novel virus, but I think what happened was when the data was becoming more and more apparent that the path they were on was wrong, they doubled down and wanted to do it even more. And I really believe had Florida not just kind of stood in the way, I think this country would have had rolling lockdowns for probably a 2-year period. And so their impulses were authoritarian. They were not following the data. And I think the US government needs to acknowledge the failures. And I think all of those agencies need to be cleaned out. What I saw just dealing with them was I saw a interest in the narrative and in politics over evidence-based reasoning and evidence-based medicine. And so I don't have confidence that those agencies are up to the task. And I think you need major overhaul of the whole enchilada with respect to public health in this country.
Can I follow up with that?
Pretty generic.
I mean, I think the other thing that I saw during the pandemic, Governor, and you was subject to it just as much as I was when we were talking about COVID. YouTube censored a video of us speaking about in a roundtable that you hosted on COVID policy. There's so much of the federal government infrastructure went into suppressing honest scientific discussion during the pandemic. So it's not just public health agencies, but other agencies inside the federal government that worked to suppress the speech of Americans. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
No question. So I'm actually in Florida. We recognize the danger there. So I'm actually going to be signing a digital bill of rights for Florida pretty soon, which will bar all state and local government officials from colluding or working with a technology company for the purpose of censorship of speech. Because you're exactly right. You had people in the White House, you had people in all these other agencies working with these platforms to try to take it down. And oh, by the way, what did they censor Dr. Bhattacharya for? It was a roundtable discussion that I led and convened. We had Dr. Bhattacharya, MD, PhD from Stanford. We had Martin Kulldorff from Harvard Medical School, and we had Sunetra Gupta from Oxford, who was generally viewed as one of the best epidemiologists across the pond until she became anti-lockdown. So these are all eminent people. And what are we discussing? We're discussing whether there's any scientific basis to force a school child to wear a mask for 8 hours a day. They all agreed there was no basis to do it and that you should not have school mask mandates. YouTube thought that was, quote, anti-science and that should be taken down. But even at that point, we had already had enough experience in Florida where you had some schools that had done it before the state banned the mandates. You had some schools that had done it, some schools didn't, and the results were no different. And yet his video was taken down by Google YouTube. So it was a huge problem. And yes, I think the federal government, FBI, DHS, any of the health agencies, it's unconstitutional for them to be delegating speech restriction to a private company. You can't do indirectly what the Constitution would clearly forbid you to do directly.
We got Rufo and Massey.
Let me pull in. We have
Rufo,
Congressman Thomas Massey.
Massey's here. Thomas Massey.
If you're there, go ahead and unmute yourself. I mean, what we're talking about here is, I think, really unconstitutional actions by federal agencies. Congressman Massey, I know that you've been involved in this problem of government agencies being weaponized and used against the American people in an inappropriate way.
Steve,
do you have a comment on this? And do you have a question for Governor DeSantis?
Well, first of all, let me say a big thank you to Elon Musk for buying Twitter and exposing all of this. On our weaponization committee, we wouldn't know so much of it if he hadn't done this, almost as a public service to the First Amendment. It's a disturbing trend. Government, as the governor said, the government is colluding with big corporations. We found out this week from an FBI whistleblower that Bank of America voluntarily gave names of and information on anybody who bought a hot dog in Washington, D.C. from January 5th to January 7th, and then overlaid that with gun purchases that they had on record anywhere in the country for any period of time. And just, they say they voluntarily gave that to the FBI. So that's disturbing to me. By the way, I've never met Elon Musk, but I'm one of your biggest fans. I'm the first congressman to have a Tesla. I'm on I'm on Starlink, And I would have bought a Powerwall, but I'm off the grid, and you wouldn't sell me one, so I had to make one with a wrecked Model S, and it's been running our house for 5 years. But my
And just for the record,
That's cool.
Massey's
cool.
I was with Thomas our first year in Congress. He's got the Tesla, but his license plate is Kentucky Coal. So it's he's probably one of the only people that have that in the country.
Thanks for outing me, Governor DeSantis. But no, so Governor DeSantis, my question to you is, you served here in Congress for 6 years with me. And why is it that Congress is so feckless at reining in these government agencies? And what do you think we need to do? And if you were president, what would you urge Congress, or what bills would you like to see and sign to rein in this, sort of overreach of government bureaucracy?
Well, first, I think there's a lot that the executive branch can do, and all I will say when it comes to these agencies, we'll go into this a little bit more as the campaign goes on. But buckle up when I get in there, because the status quo is not acceptable, and we are going to make sure that we reconstitutionalize this government. And these agencies are totally out of control. There's no accountability, and we are going to bring that in a very big way. Now, part of the reason it's gotten so bad, power has been consolidated and effectively a fourth branch of government, because Congress hasn't used its two main powers that it has under the Constitution. First, the power of the purse. If an agency is engaging in conduct that is outside the realm of what is legal, or you think it's not good for the public interest, then you can remove the funding for those operations. There's nothing that they're not entitled to get the same level of funding every year, and yet Congress runs the government on autopilot, either continuing resolutions or massive omnibus spending bills. So these agencies are all bulletproof. They know that they're going to end up getting something similar or
Endless
more
money.
every single year,
Every time.
and it
Every
creates
year.
an incentive for them to abuse their power. The other thing you can do is actually legislate, so you're not delegating to the bureaucracy key issues regarding how to enforce federal law. You should define what you want. All they should be doing is implementing. Instead, Congress will basically give an invitation for the bureaucracy to make really important substantive decisions. And so Congress may never vote on something, and the bureaucracy will cite a law from 20 years ago and do things that are going to transform our society or our country. That is not the way the founding fathers drew up the Constitution.
So would you sign the REINS Act? We passed it out of Judiciary today.
Good question.
Yeah, no,
You
of course. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That would, I think, be a great check for that. I also think that we're going to have a good chance to see some of this Chevron deference really curtailed, or maybe even eliminated based on the U.S. Supreme Court's upcoming jurisprudence. And I think that's another reason why the bureaucracy has become so powerful, because courts have basically been told they can pretty much do what they want, and courts are supposed to just defer. I don't think that that's actually correct. I think the courts, they have to make a judgment about what does the law actually say, and you can't just defer to quote unquote experts in the bureaucracy.
Thank you.
So that REINS Act is a
All right, shifting
rulemaking
gears,
act.
Governor, I want to ask you another topic that's been in the news a lot is Disney. They blamed you
Rufo's
for
coming up.
canceling plans for $1 billion investment in Florida. Said they were canceling 2,000 jobs. I saw other reports that suggested Disney was going to make the cuts anyway, and due to a larger, budget cutting initiative. Regardless of why they did it, why do you feel your fight with Disney remains important? Considering you already beat them on the parental rights bill that they opposed? And what would you say to some of your opponents in this race who argue that the fight has dragged on too long?
So first of all, Florida stands for the protection of children. We believe jamming gender ideology in elementary school is wrong. Disney obviously supported injecting gender ideology in elementary school. They did oppose our parents' rights legislation. And the fact is, when they opposed it, that was a big deal, because for 50 years, anytime Disney wanted something in Florida politics, they pretty much got it. But not this time. I signed the bill. We did, as you say, win on the issue. But what happened was Disney's posturing, some of the other statements that their executives were making, kind of the corporate culture, had really been outed as trying to inject matters of sex into the programming for the youth. And I think a lot of parents, including me, look at that and say, that's not appropriate. I mean, we want our kids to be able to just be kids.
And that's kind of our mantra. So you had this setup that Disney engineered many decades ago, where they actually had their own government that they controlled with no accountability. They were exempt from the laws that all their competitors had to follow, massive tax breaks, and they even racked up municipal debt. And Florida basically put them on a pedestal many decades ago and joined the state with this one company at the hip. We just didn't feel that we were comfortable maintaining that relationship. And so we ended their self-governing status. So Disney has to live under the same laws as everybody. They got to pay the same taxes as everybody. And obviously they'll be responsible for those debts. So the reason why there's a quote fight is just because they filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida trying to get their special privileges reinstituted. But I don't think that that's good policy. And I think some of these Republicans that are taking Disney's side, they're basically showing themselves to be corporatists because these are all corporate goodies. This is not the way you would run a competitive economy.
I think this is a distinction
the
with
arrangement
Trump.
had really outlived its usefulness, but it persisted because Disney was so politically powerful. I think the company's ethos have changed in a way that's alienated a lot of people in our legislature and in Florida. And so there was really no justification to keep it. But make no mistake, they're suing to try to get special privileges. People are making money in Florida hand over fist because we have a great business climate. That's not good enough for them. They want to be treated differently than Universal and SeaWorld, and we don't think that that's appropriate. So, I think that they should withdraw the lawsuit, but obviously we're going to defend our actions because we think we have the right to do what we did.
It's funny, the media used to criticize Republicans for being in the pocket of big corporations, and now they're attacking you because you're not.
Well, not only that, David, it's interesting because the media in Florida for years had hammered Disney, and they would point out like that this was not a good arrangement because Disney was not accountable to anyone. I mean, when the state control board took over this district, the firefighters came to the board and they said, hey, we weren't getting survivor benefits for some of these widows. And so the state control board actually paid out some of the benefits that they were getting stiffed on. There were a lot of people in Central Florida who were really thankful that there was some accountability being brought to bear because, it's human nature. If there's no accountability over any individual or entity, of course, they're going to behave differently than if you have normal accountability. But the media was always very hostile to that. But just because I happen to be involved in bringing it back to reality and making sure that they were under the same laws, well, then all of a sudden they're running to Disney's defense. I mean, are you kidding me? And oh, by the way, on this project, they had announced this many years ago. They had not done anything for it, but that is actually not in Reedy Creek. So that was in a different part of Orlando. And so none of the issues that are involved in their suit would have made a difference there. Obviously, as a publicly traded corporation, they have a fiduciary duty to do what's best for their shareholders. So I'm assuming if they were in better financial shape and they saw the project as lucrative, they would have gone forward with it. But I think clearly they've had some problems with their stock price and a lot of other issues. And I'd also just finally point out, nobody probably has made Disney more money than me because they were open during COVID and they were closed in California. And that went on for many, many months where literally I had all the theme parks in Florida opened in 2020. People are going, it's safe, they're having fun. And the California parks were closed. I think they were closed for over a year out in California. So we were, I think, a much better place to be doing business, certainly since I've been governor.
Great. Let me shift gears here to the topic of education. I want to pull Chris Rufo into the conversation. I know he worked with you on some initiatives. I think, one other thing that the mainstream media has, I think, bashed on is they've kind of started promoting this narrative that you want to ban books from school libraries. You refuse to teach kids about slavery or other unpleasant realities of American history, or pretend that gay people don't exist. Since many people, I think, in this room, we're now up to, over 271,000 people. So this is, I think, totally unprecedented in terms of the numbers of people we have participating. By the way, I think Twitter's working much better now. I think it crashed because when you multiply 500,000 people in a room by an account with over 100 million followers, which is Elon's account, I think that creates just a scalability level that was unprecedented. But with my meager followership, it seems to be working much better.
It's we have some scaling issues specifically related to my account. At one point in January, if I tweeted above a certain size, it would crash the servers.
Yeah.
And then anyone else who was tweeting at the same time would lose their tweet as well.
So in any
there's some
event,
scaling
yeah,
issues.
yeah. Well, we're breaking new ground here.
We're scaling issues.
Yes, you're breaking new ground when there are bugs and scaling issues. But in any event, back to the question I was asking you, Governor DeSantis, about education. The media has been, saying you're trying to ban books. You refuse to teach kids about slavery. You want to say that gay people don't exist. What is the truth of the matter for people who maybe have never heard from you before? And then I want to pull Chris Rufo in on this as well.
Yeah, so the whole book ban thing is a hoax. There's not been a single book banned in the state of Florida. You can go buy or use whatever book you want. What we have done is empowered parents with the ability to review the curriculum, to know what books are being used in school, and then to ensure that those books match state standards and are age and developmentally appropriate. So, for example, parents have flagged books in schools that, for example, teach middle school kids how to use sex apps, that provide graphic depictions of sex acts and sex toys for people as young as 5th grade. And so clearly that is not appropriate to be in a middle school classroom. And so parents object and the schools take them out. I did a press conference that we called Exposing the Book Ban Hoax. And before I had the parents come up, before I spoke, I just played the video that had the images of the books that the parents had objected being in their kids' classroom. And
Gross
the local
books.
news had to cut the feed because they said it was too graphic. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it okay for a 6th grader or a 5th grader? And so nothing's being banned. They're basically ensuring that we make curation choices that are consistent with state standards. And on the racial history, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. That was the right thing to do. In other words, we're not going to take a kid who comes in at 6 years old and say they're an oppressor or oppressed based on what their race is. That's divisive. That's wrong. We're also not going to be teaching people to hate their country. But what we are going to do is teach the accurate history. So in the same bill that banned critical race theory, we required teaching thoroughly about racial discrimination that occurred in American history. And Florida's history standards require all of those subjects from slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, all of that to be taught, and we'll continue to do that. So I think what you see is the left and the media colluding on this. They don't want to actually defend what it is that we are actually legislating or regulating. So they create these hoaxes that somehow you don't want kids to learn that slavery existed in America, which is preposterous. No one actually defends the offending material. And the question is why are there people intent on trying to get this stuff into the classroom? And I think it's part of a political agenda. So our mantra in Florida is this: purpose of the schools is education, not indoctrination. Yes, I think it's very inappropriate to have sexually explicit material in a 5th grade library, 100%. But it's also the case that if you're focusing on that type of instruction, there's an opportunity cost involved. Why shouldn't we be doing more on science or reading or math? And so I think we're getting it right. And I think almost invariably, and Chris Rufo's had to deal with this too, when they're trying to craft these narratives, if you just peel back the onion, you realize that this is something they're manufacturing.
Who the hell is Rob, by the way, on Trump's Truth Social?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was actually under the impression that there were some books banned, so this is news to me.
And the one this week was that Miami-Dade County took a book that was about like poems from I think like Biden's inauguration, and they moved it from elementary school library to middle school library. The media tried to act like somehow this is being banned, and you actually had Miami-Dade County Public Schools spokesperson have to come out and say there's nothing that's been banned or removed. It was basically just determined that this particular book was better suited for middle school. And so they put it in the middle school media center. And the media tries to act like somehow that is offending something with a book ban. So, but I think part of the reason that they're doing that is because, there is actually a movement to ban books from like Amazon and some of these others. California, some municipalities have banned things like To Kill a Mockingbird. What they're trying to do is see if some of these books pass a woke test. And if they don't, they are going against some of those books. Whereas in Florida, you can buy whatever book you want. But that's a different question than what would be appropriate for a third grader or what would be appropriate for a sixth grader. Government, by definition, has to make those choices about what type of curriculum we want to put in front of our students. And the parents obviously have an important voice in that.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, a friend of mine, Tim Urban, who has a blog called Wait But Why, and is really one of the most reasonable people on earth and one of the most reasoned people I've ever met, had a lot of trouble actually publishing his book, simply because it debated sort of sacred cows of woke ideology. But an incredibly reasonable book. So that is the kind of de facto book banning and de facto book suppression that I see quite a lot of, is that the publishers are unwilling to take risks.
Let me shift gears here for a second, because I know we're running out of time. We're supposed to end, I think, around 4 Pacific, but thank you for giving us a little bit of extra time here, Governor. Shifting gears to a major federal issue, immigration. We see I've seen these videos
FBI,
on social media and on TV of what looks like just insanity at the border. What is your take on what's going on there, and how would you address that as president?
Well, I'd reverse what Biden's doing. You need to shut the border down. You should not be entertaining these asylum claims for people crossing illegally. You know, asylum is a legitimate thing, but these are people that when they come, I mean, they're being persecuted. These people coming overwhelmingly are economic migrants that are coming across many other different countries. They should be applying for asylum there if they were, truly qualifying for that, but they're not. They know that if they just show up at the southern border, and these are people all over the world that are coming illegally, they know that they will get a sheet of paper saying, okay, come back for a court date in 3 years, and they get released to the interior of our country. It's an absolutely insane system. So we'll stop that. We will move on day one by declaring a national emergency. We will construct a border wall. We will make sure we have remain in Mexico and that we're not entertaining those claims in that way. And we really need to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable, because they're facilitating a lot of this migration. They obviously make money off of it. They treat a lot of these people very horribly as they're trafficking them through Mexico and into the United States. And of course, the cartels have been responsible for moving massive amounts of fentanyl into this country. And that's killing tens of thousands of Americans every year now. And what they're doing is they lace the other types of drugs with the fentanyl. So you may have like a teenage kid doing something they probably shouldn't do, but in prior generations would not have been fatal. And now if it's laced with fentanyl, these kids can overdose and die. And so mothers are losing kids as a result of this fentanyl epidemic. And I just don't think you could allow these criminal organizations to continue poisoning our population. So it'll be a day one issue. We will bring overwhelming amount of resources to deal with it. And we are going to stop this insanity once and for all.
There's a, I think, follow-up question on immigration from Steve Dace, who is a national radio personality and I think an important commentator in the great state of Iowa. Steve,
Blaze
do you have
TV, best-selling author,
you have a comment or question?
producer.
I think you just need to unmute.
Steve.
If Steve can unmute, then we'll go ahead and ask him for a question. If not, we'll keep rolling here. All right, 3, 2, going.
I'm there,
all right,
guys.
sorry, Steve.
I'm there, guys.
Oh,
Sorry.
there you
he
go.
is.
All right.
He's running back to his
My
phone.
bad. First of all, I want to echo what Congressman Massey said to Elon. Elon, if I put down money on January 1st, 2022, that Twitter was going to be the last bastion of free speech on earth, brother, I'd be about as rich as you are on that bet right now. I mean, it's incredible what you have done here, and the restoration of a lot of accounts of people that were truth tellers and were ran from here for telling the truth. I saw a meme the other day that said, of course you have scientific consensus when you censor all the scientists who disagree. So I wanted to just say, first and foremost, on behalf of a lot of grateful people around the country and the world, really, thank you very much for that and the investment you made in that cause. Thank you. A question is a follow-up to you, Governor. on this very issue with immigration. We have heard a lot over the years, lock her up, drain the swamp, going to build a beautiful wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. And crowds cheered and everybody loved it. And brands got built and nothing got done. What is the bottom line
Spicy
assurance
question
that you can make to the people that are listening right now, all over the world and all over the country, that you can actually do the agenda that you just articulated when others tweeted about it and talked about it, but then couldn't actually follow through?
It's a great question because I share that frustration. I think even my worst critics in Florida will acknowledge when I tell people I'm going to do something, I don't make promises or say I'm going to do something lightly. I've thought it through, and I know that I am going to follow through on what I tell people I'm going to do. So this is one, there will be follow through. Number two, I understand the different leverage points that you would have under Article 2 of the Constitution. I studied that a lot at becoming governor about Florida's Constitution, doing the same thing for the federal Constitution. And you've got to know how to use your leverage to advance what you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, there's leverage that we can use vis-a-vis Mexico that I think presidents have not been willing to do. I think sometimes for political purposes. But I'll look at, okay, what are all the variety of options we can do? Which buttons can I push? And I will do that to be able to bring this issue to a conclusion once and for all. We had Hurricane Ian come through Southwest Florida, Category 4+ storm, September of 2022. And it did a lot of damage. But one of the things it did, it knocked out a bridge going from the mainland to Pine Island, and it severed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 different locations. And the locals were being told it's going to take 6 months to get that stuff repaired. And so they came to me, even though these were not state-owned bridges, and they said, can you help us? And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I got my guys together. I said, listen, no bureaucracy, no red tape, and no excuses. Get it done. We need to open these bridges back. Pine Island Bridge reopened 3 days later. Sanibel Causeway opened 2 weeks after that, way, way ahead of schedule, because we wouldn't take no for an answer, and we wanted to make sure we got it done. So for me, it is not a campaign slogan that you get in and then forget about it. I'm, as an American citizen, if I wasn't running, this would be an issue that bothers me. I've put a lot of my capital as Florida governor involved in combating illegal immigration. We banned sanctuary cities my first year. We just did a strong anti-illegal immigration bill in Florida that's working. I've put marine assets in the Florida Keys to help the Coast Guard repel boats from places like Haiti. I have people at the southern border right now helping Texas, and we've even been able to relocate illegal aliens to places like Martha's Vineyard. So I don't think any governor has probably gone out of his way to do more to try to make an impact on this issue. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I think our voters are sick of the empty promises. They want to see action.
Thank you, Governor.
Well, Governor, I saw the cover of Time magazine this week. And I think they were trying to do a negative story because they had you were sort of scowling in this portrait they made of you, and in the article they call you they compared you to the Terminator, and I think they meant an insult, but I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was a good thing because I think we need a cool-headed, ruthless assassin to go in and basically take on the woke mob, take on our out-of-control government, and take on problems like the ones at the border. So, again, I thought it made you sound great, even though that may not have been their intention.
Well, look, at the end of the day, this whole business that we're in is about producing results. I don't care about fanfare. I'm the governor, like that is, I'm known, right? And I go around the state and everything, and people are very nice. And so, I appreciate the well wishes, but I don't need any of the fanfare. I don't need any adulation. I just know I'm in a position where I have a chance to make a difference, and I'm either doing it or I'm not. And I remember sitting at the desk in the state capitol my first day as governor 4.5 years ago. I looked around the room and I thought to myself, I don't know what SOB is going to succeed me in this chair, but they are not going to have anything to do because I'm getting all the meat off the bone. I am going to make sure that I'm leaning into issues and making an impact. And we have done that in the state of Florida, and I bring that exact attitude up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Governor, I'd love to jump in and follow up on that. This is Chris Rufo. And, I've had the honor of working with you in the past few years on critical race theory, gender ideology, and the DEI bureaucracy. And what I've seen up close and personal is that while many conservative politicians going back decades have made headlines and got on television playing culture war, they never actually get anything done. And what you've done over the last few years is really astonishing. You've eliminated CRT from all Florida's public institutions. You've stopped gender ideology dead in its tracks in K through 12. And just last week, you eliminated the DEI bureaucracy in all of Florida's public universities. They'll be shut down completely. And I think what you've done is established a blueprint for fighting back against the left's long march of the institutions and making sure that those institutions reflect the value of Florida voters, not left-wing activists and the partisan press. So my question for you is, DC is another animal. It's quite different, the scale of the federal government. And how are you going to deliver results? And what is your culture war strategy facing down the swamp in DC?
Well, some of it is similar in this respect. When we're taking on things like DEI, you get blowback from legacy media and the far left. But that's an example of an issue where they are out of step with the vast majority of Americans. It's not just Republicans. It's independents and a lot of Democrats. Because you think about if you're a parent and you've got kids, you want to know when they apply to college, they're going to be judged based on their merit. And they're not going to be roadkill in some type of woke Olympics where they didn't fit some category and so they're denied opportunity. They want to make sure that achievement matters. And so we get a lot of quiet support for a lot of those things. And so I think what I do, just because, look, I'm a blue collar kid. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, working minimum wage to get through school. My grandfather worked in the steel mill in Western Pennsylvania. I just know instinctively kind of what like normal people think about all this stuff. And I have a good sense of when the legacy media and the left are outside of where the average American is, because people want you to be using common sense. And things like DEI, I mean, when I was growing up, I think things were better because people were actually told you should try to get along. Now they're told you need to segregate. And it's just crazy that they're trying to do all this stuff. So by eliminating that, there's a lot of people that were really happy about that, including people that certainly are not traditional Republicans. And I think there's similar issues when you do in the federal level. It's also the case that there are some tools at the federal level that we don't necessarily have at the state level. For example, some of the problems with the university and the ideological capture, that didn't happen by accident, can trace back all the way to the accreditation cartels. Well, guess what? To become an accreditor, how do you do that? You've got to get approved by the U.S. Department of Education. So we're going to be doing alternative accreditation regimes where instead of saying you will only get accredited if you do DEI, you'll have an accreditor that will say, we will not accredit you if you do DEI. We want a colorblind, merit-based accreditation scheme. And so as president, controlling that agency, you can then approve other types of accreditation. So I think part of it is just knowing where are all the pressure points? How does it get to the point that we then see and that somebody like you will run a report on? Like when you see some of the outrageous stuff that's generated in some sociology department at a university, that didn't just happen out of thin air. There's a reason why we got to that point. And I think that there are some tools with the federal government where you can push back and try to get these institutions moored in a more foundational direction about, hey, we're pursuing truth here, and we're not here to try to impose one niche ideology on the entire student body.
We got Dana Lotion here, probably one of the final questions coming up. Don't see any other speakers.
Right, shifting gears. Dana Lash, you
Lashy?
A question or comment for the governor?
I do. And thank you both so much for your time, for joining us in a very new way. I really appreciate that. I think it's really cool. And for your support of free speech too. And Elon, I have to say thank you for taking arrows and for unthrottling the accounts of all of us who got in trouble for sharing a New York Post story about a laptop.
Shout out to
Governor,
Elon. Shout out
I wanted
to
to thank you for your leadership
Dana and the Hunter
your
Biden laptop story.
unwavering support of Second Amendment rights. And you're on my program tomorrow, and I just got to say, you got my vote in the primary, so I appreciate it very much. You were talking about DEI just a minute ago, and I want to ask you both about this growing threat against natural rights and free enterprise. It's this threat of debanking. Now, I know that, Elon, I've read so much about you and what you've gone through. You've called ESG criteria evil incarnate. Governor DeSantis, Florida, saw financially weaponized wokery earlier this year when Wells Fargo Bank dumped both the business and personal accounts of a very prominent and well-respected gun dealer in Florida. They've been together for 25 years working with Wells Fargo, and they cited new ESG guidelines. Now, similar to the DOJ's previous Operation Choke Point, all these activists for various causes are using this regulatory guidance to debank what they consider to be politically incorrect businesses for the sake of risk management. Now, we say that our rights should not be infringed upon by the government, but what can and should be done about activist-guided financial institutions and these payment processors who are essentially cutting off law-abiding citizens and businesses?
Well, I think it's a fundamental issue that I think not enough conservatives have been wise to. I think more and more are. But at the end of the day, we have certain fundamental rights. And so maybe you're somebody that is, really excited about your Second Amendment rights. And obviously, if the government comes in and infringes that, we know you blow the whistle on that. That's a problem. But what if Wall Street banks are colluding so that somebody can't function in that space, whether it's running a store or anything involving that? Your rights are still being infringed upon in that situation. And so I think this whole ESG movement is really trying to do through the financial sector what they could never achieve through the ballot box. And so they're trying to do an end run around the constitutional system, and they're really trying to change policy. They're trying to change society, and they're trying to change the scope of people's rights. And so in Florida, I just signed anti-ESG legislation, which said things like no ESG criteria in our pension fund. We got a $180 billion state pension fund, no social credit scores for consumers when they're going to bank. In other words, if you apply for a loan, that loan should be judged based on your credit worthiness, not whether you're genuflecting to the appropriate left-wing causes. But one thing we did do is we did provide protection against this debanking with the woke banking, no discrimination based on your religion and other things, which we know is happening. So I think it's a fundamental question, but we will not be a free society if major financial institutions can do through the economy what people could not achieve through the ballot box. Our rights will be restricted, will be the end result, and that's not healthy for a free country.
As a follow-up to that, Governor, Dana mentioned Operation Choke Point, and that is a term that's very familiar to crypto companies in Silicon Valley and fintech companies. Basically, it refers to an effort by the federal government, including the SEC, to basically regulate blockchain and crypto companies out of existence. They really feel like they're being driven out of the country. And I'm not talking about scammy ones or the totally fake ones like FTX, but really high quality, good companies, including companies that are public like
SVB?
Coinbase. And these guys are basically begging
Are we going to get an SVB
the government
question?
for just a framework. They're just like, tell us how to operate legally and we'll do it.
Vivek wants a SVB question.
I guess where do you come down on this? What is your view, I guess, broadly of Bitcoin and people's right to hold Bitcoin and to transact Bitcoin?
Yeah, great question.
You have every right to do Bitcoin. The only reason these people in Washington don't like it is because they don't control it. And they're central planners, and they want to have control over society. And so Bitcoin represents a threat to them. And so, as you're saying, they're trying to regulate it out of existence. Look, could Congress enact a statute to ban things like Bitcoin under the Constitution? They may be able to do. I would oppose that. I think people should be able to do Bitcoin. But Congress has never addressed this in this fashion. And for the bureaucracy to just do it on their own and make it so people can't operate in that space, that's what we mean when we say we've got to return the government to the people's elected representatives who are our voice to be able to make these decisions. And so as president, we'll protect the ability to do things like Bitcoin. I think these are people that are sophisticated. They can make decisions. There's risks involved with it, but let them do that. I just do not have an itch to have to control everything that people may be doing in this space. And I think that the current regime, clearly, they have it out for Bitcoin. And if it continues for another 4 years, they'll probably end up killing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that is the strong feeling of people in Silicon Valley who are in this space. And I think we'll be heartened to hear your answer on that. I mean, the weird thing is that, and there is a huge constituency of crypto Twitter. So for people who are maybe part of political Twitter who are wondering why we're talking about this, it really has a big audience for this topic.
It's a big important big important
Yeah.
topic.
Bitcoin and Dogecoin.
And Doge.
So shout out to all the Doge fans out there.
All the Doge.
But the weird thing is that this administration, they seem to want to ban Bitcoin, but they want to create a CBDC, which stands for a central bank digital currency. What's your take on that?
So we were the first state just last month. We actually got the Florida legislature to pass a law that says Florida does not recognize central bank digital currency, because some states were actually adding that to their uniform commercial code. The federal government's studying this. We did the opposite and say we didn't. Now, the reason why we did that is because what the Federal Reserve has said is, well, we're going to consult with Congress. We'll consult with the executive branch. We don't have a CBDC right now. And ideally, we would get authorization for Congress. Well, wait a minute. It's not ideally. You must get authorization from Congress. I don't think Congress would authorize it. So if they unilaterally try to do this, we're trying to provide protection for people here in Florida. I know Biden did the executive order. They're studying it. I can tell you, if I'm president, we are not doing a central bank digital currency. I think that would be a huge, huge imposition on people's financial freedoms and financial privacy. And oh, by the way, what would the logical result of this be? If the central authority has oversight over this, of course they're going to start imposing ESG criteria. Oh, wait a minute. You filled up your gas tank 3 times this week. You can't do any more. The sky of how they would be able to manipulate this. So I see it as a massive transfer of power from individual consumers to a central authority. And I don't think that's good for a free society. So I'm a no on central bank digital currency.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Governor, I want to thank you for the time. I mean, we could go for hours here, but I know you only had an hour and we've gone over that. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know there's so many people who want to ask questions, and
we should do it again. I mean, I think it was fun. I think this is great. And we'll make sure that that we come back and do it again. This is a great platform. I mean, I would like to see other platforms going in the same direction, but a healthy democratic society
like to see
needs
YouTube
the robust
and
debate.
others.
So I just want to thank everybody
Be a little
for
bit more
listening
open.
in, and I'll just make that pitch again. We want you on the team. We'd love for you to go to rondesantis.com and make a donation so that we can get this done on this nomination and win the election in November of 2024. God bless everybody, and thank you.
Well, thanks, Governor. And yeah, we have over 300,000 people in the room. It's really been pretty incredible. And, we started with some technical issues because of the sheer scale of and unprecedented nature of what we were doing. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I think this finished really strong. So,
yeah, I think it's just really great for the people to hear directly from presidential candidates and to have it in a conversational tone. Which obviously results in, it's going to be imperfect because it's not scripted. So, but it's genuine. And I think that really gives the people an opportunity to understand who might be their president in a way that's real. So thank you very much for coming on and doing this.
And the invitation's open to any other candidates who might want to do this.
Absolutely. It is important for people to hear directly from candidates. So thank you for working with us on this historic event, and looking forward to future conversations and just having a great national dialogue.
All righty, everybody. Thank you for just.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, so it looks like that is the end of the Ron DeSantis announcement. And it was about what we expected. A little bit of the technical hiccups at the start of the thing, which we can all excuse. We all have tube and internet connection problems. And the fact that they're doing this, I think, really is a cool thing. I do think that it was a bit risky because of the technical concerns, but we also have the general concerns with just not doing a regular announcement. Remember that Trump, when he has a rally, he comes out and everybody's screaming, there's flags, there's lights, lots of conversations about the energy in the room, the excitement, people who are enthusiastic about Donald Trump, but we just didn't see much of that here because there wasn't an ability to have applause, like literally the physical applause, the visual elements you don't get to see. You do get to listen to it and then come to your conclusions, but visual elements are extremely powerful. And I was wondering how they were going to address that without the applause, without the sights and sounds. And I know Elon is working hard on video, and so maybe at some point we might have video Twitter spaces or something, but it still leaves some of the performative aspects of it. And they said that that was beneficial because they're going to bring in the authenticity component. But then we got into this, and I'm not real sure that there was a lot of authenticity there. I mean, it felt like there was a very much a scripted speech that was given, just like he would give if he was out at a rally. He would go out in front and read from a teleprompter, deliver the speech. But what was different about this was they were kind of explaining that this was going to be an opportunity for the people to send in questions. And we did get some questions, but they were very, very friendly questions from people who were obviously in the Ron DeSantis camp. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They were just friendly questions. We heard from a lot of great people doing amazing work out there, but they were asking questions, and it felt to me like they were going kind of through the bullet points, like going through a list of topics that maybe Ron knew about, maybe he didn't know about. I don't know. We're going to go to the border. We're going to go to woke. We're going to go to Disney. We're going to go to Trump, so sort of, and the border and the wall and all of that. And we just go down the list and everybody asks their questions. What I was expecting was a little bit more of the people being able to ask questions. You know, I wanted to hear from Wizard Guy 37, whoever that is, you know, or whatever the person is on Twitter. I thought that they were just going to be taking questions and hearing people from the Twitter space, something that was a little bit more organic, not as scripted and back and forth and kind of passing the hot potato around. It didn't feel very organic to me. Now, that's different. That's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You can do that, but that's not what I felt like they were communicating this was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit more accessible, and they may have changed it up, right? They may have changed that because of the delay. They had another 30-minute delay while they were trying to figure out the mechanical issues there, but they ultimately got the issues worked out, and then we got a nice conversation. I don't think it was anything that was necessarily earth-shattering or breaks the mold in any way, but we see there was about 478,000 people who tuned in, and there'll be many, many more who listened to the recording. And of course, there's people who are listening here who never tuned in, and so millions of people are going to be listening to this thing. So it's going to be a very big announcement. And I think that Ron did a fine job. A lot of the commentary felt very political, felt very fluffy, got asked some hard questions about what specifically would you do, gave some concrete answers on some, like he would pass the REINS Act, but then on other questions, very fluffy language, and he just kind of talked like politicians do. Some things that I wish we would have heard a lot more about: FBI, DOJ, Homeland Security, January 6th, the weaponization of the entire government. We did get into some COVID policy and how those entities were weaponized, but the bigger question was about from my perspective, and for a lot of the issues we talk about here are justice issues, because whenever the government touches you, it's usually through one of two things: one, the IRS, or one, the Justice Department. So we want to hear about those things. The other thing that we didn't hear about was Ukraine. I don't think we have talked at all about Ukraine, kind of a big issue, or foreign policy. Didn't get any foreign policy questions. A lot of domestic questions, a lot of states' rights questions, a lot of questions that Ron DeSantis knows very well and has an amazing track record on it. And so it was very friendly, and that's okay, right? It's a launch, a campaign announcement, but it kind of wasn't what I was expecting out of a Twitter space. A Twitter space is a little more, you take questions directly from the people, not a bunch of friendlies who endorse you. And many of those people did endorse him and have endorsed him, like Thomas Massie and others. And so, of course, We're going to continue to cover this. We're seeing what the media says, and they're not missing a beat. The Washington Post, they right out of the gate do exactly what we expected. Says the DeSantis kickoff on Twitter was plagued by technical issues. Dorks over there. They're so upset about it. Allies hopes an official plunge will regain momentum. He had planned to make an unorthodox entry for a live announcement, but the Twitter space came to a halt roughly after 20 minutes after a glitch-plagued minutes. Said this is not available. Awkward start to a long-expected campaign with many roadblocks and so on and so forth. New York Times did the same thing. DeSantis stumbles out of the gate with a Twitter meltdown. They're just as excited as can be. Why? Because they hate DeSantis and they hate Elon Musk and Twitter because they hate anybody on the right. And so they're all just going to turn their attention to whoever is looking like the biggest threat to them. So they're excited. They're gleeful about some of the Twitter difficulties. But that was the Ron DeSantis announcement, my friends. There will be a lot more to come. It's going to be a very bruising and politically bloody primary season. But my ultimate hope is that we are able to listen to the candidates, review them, go through what they say, judge them on the issues, and then go through the process and come out with the best candidate on top who can win for America. And my ultimate hope is that everybody after this little fight is over, we all get together and embrace in a big hug and sing Kumbaya together, okay? I sound like a liberal, but we got to win this country back, baby. And after we're done duking it out, we got to bro code and love it up so we can all go vote and win. All right, and so that, my friends, is going to be it for us on the day. Now, let's see what you have to say about all of this and more from our friends on YouTube, on Rumble, on Locals, and all across the fruited plain of the internet. We had Michael Swade, who said, screw this announcement. We all know what he's going to say. We all know he's going to lose the primary, no matter how much they try to save his butt in the election. It's good to see you, Michael. We'll see. It's going to get hot. The Chugi Show live. What's up, The Chugi Show? Sounds like it might be a nice, beautiful show over there. Says DeSantis should not be happy. Nobody wants their launch to get off to a bad start. That's true. I'm sure they're not happy about it. And I mean that genuinely. Like, his campaign people are like, we told you, you should have just gone on CNN. And they're all having a little hissy fit too. So I'm sure that's happening. But I think it's cool that they did something new and that they are trying to break the mold. I really think it's good. And it scares the media. That's why they're so gleeful about it. That's why their stories are these stories. That's why they're so giddy. Good to see you, The Chugi Show. Who else is here? Peter's here. Says, well, if DeSantis ever had a chance, he doesn't now. This announcement glitch and fail makes him look inept. Doesn't matter if it's his fault or not. That was my response. It was, well, it's Elon. You know, it's kind of Twitter and Elon. But I guess you might be saying, well, it's his judgment. You know, maybe he should have had something better choreographed. And it is different, right? It is a little bit risky. And Vivek's dunking on him, and we'll see what the other candidates say. I looked to see if Nikki Haley had anything to say, and I looked to see if, like, Tim Scott had anything. And they hadn't said anything quite yet. Wrestler Town's in the house. Says Trump needs to tweet right now while the space fails. And Trump has been posting videos on Truth. And they're dunk videos on DeSantis. Yeah, and the Rubos are in the house. They have a great point. Yeah, this might force Trump to come back to Twitter since it's becoming the town square now. It's a great point. Another one from Isaac Bowles says, this was a horrible decision. There's no crowd reacting to what would otherwise seem like a great speech. Exactly. Yeah, that's the non-verbal cues that we really, really value as human beings. We really get a lot from them. And an energetic, packed room full of people screaming versus a Twitter space that's like, doesn't work. And when you get on there, right? And I was wondering how Ron was going to do this, because typically when you say, I am officially announcing that I will be running for president in the 2000, everybody goes, whoa, crowd screams, yeah, 2024, yeah. But we didn't have that. And then you go into it because this country and so on. But here, Ron DeSantis, he made that announcement and he jumped right into the speech because it was prepared, right? Well, David Sachs says, hey, we're coming here. And I've decided I'm running for president. Why? Because, and he just started talking. And it wasn't that ordinary development of energy and enthusiasm behind the decision. I noticed it too, Isaac Bowles. Good to see you. Red One says, Bush-funded Ron will save America. Yeah, it's kind of like, I think the Cruz people are behind Ron, and I think the Bush people are behind Ron. And so that's why you kind of get a little bit curious about that, because certainly don't want the Bush people back in charge. I mean, that sounds like a disaster. Good to see you, Red One. Tony Hay says, DeSantis' voice is so irritating. I will say this. If he was running against Jeb Bush in the primary, I would definitely vote for Jeb. Guac Bowl Jeb? Guac Bowl Jeb Bush? Yeah. Funny. All right, Michael Swade has this comment. Says, DeSantis launched on Twitter because he could never generate the crowds that Trump does. He'd look like an idiot if he tried to do his own Trump rally to launch. There could be truth to that, right? There could be truth. There's a lot of commentary. And just to be clear, I think Ron DeSantis is a competent person who's done a great job in Florida, and I like competent people in the mix. I want more competent people in the mix, not less, running things. Now, I also have a little bit of empathy for DeSantis. Some people say he shouldn't jump in. I think that he really has no choice but to jump in. If he sits this out, he becomes a persona non grata in the electoral sphere, I think, at the next election cycle. Because whoever Trump picks for VP, presuming he wins, which is what they're going to be planning on, is then going to take on as heir apparent. Trump will have his 4-year term. Then you'll have another 8, presumably, of the vice presidency, of the vice president, and the Trump administration, right? So let's say there's a second Trump administration, and he brings in, maybe he, says we're going to have a unifying administration, whatever happens, right? Just as an example. He says, Nikki Haley, you're going to Secretary of State. Tim Scott, you're going over to Homeland Security. And he says, DeSantis, you're going to be vice president. DeSantis, you're out. And somebody else is going to be vice president, Kari Lake. Then, after the next 4 years, all of those people are on the bench, right? They're all next in queue. And DeSantis is now just another governor who's also running. So he's got to get in here to build in some leverage for himself to jockey for a better position or to jockey for vice presidency, which I think would be a basically unstoppable ticket. But they do have the Florida problem where they're both from Florida, and the theory is who would move out of there because you're going to need those Florida electoral votes. But yeah, it's a good question. And and there's hints and rumors that people say that DeSantis in person is a little bit awkward and weird. So to come out and try to glad hand a crowd during a big rally may not have been a good look for him, and they decided to go a different way. Good to see you, Michael. Tony Hay says, DeSantis is going to ruin this whole political career by doing this. Should have waited till 2028. Have some respect, bro. I lost mine for you. Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people agree with that, right? A lot of people can say, well, he should wait. I see some other comments about that. He should wait, and he'll be ripe, and he'll be perfectly ready to go at a later date. Good to see you, Tony Hay. Saintly Beginnings says, DeSantis basically did a Newsom by pushing to place a board member on Disney and control decisions rather than removing the special allowances given to Disney, as he initially stated. Very World Economic Forum of him, from Saintly Beginnings. This is a story that I have not been following all that much, to be honest, the Disney stuff out of Florida. But who has is Legal Mindset. Legal Mindset has a great channel, and he's been covering that in depth, I think going through all of the filings. And so I don't know much about it, but I know that it's a wedge issue. It's dividing Team Trump versus Team DeSantis, and it's spreading, So it's funny. It's going to be interesting to see what other wedge issues pop up here. Bruce Rice here. Bruce Rice says, Ron is a deep state animal placed to dismantle MAGA. Bruce Rice, deep state animal placed to dismantle MAGA. We also have Tony Hay Munkets who says even if DeSantis did win and did a good job as president, he would owe everything to Trump. Trump got him elected and revealed the swamp to make America great. Good comment from Tony Hay Munkets. Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that. I think that Trump's endorsement did help DeSantis become victorious. We've got Michael Swade with another one. Boring. It did kind of get a little bit political. It did get a little bit talking pointy, right? And talking pointy is not that fun on audio. You want actual raw conversation. And I've been in many other Twitter spaces that were a lot more interesting than that Twitter space, just to be clear. I'm sure many of you have too. So we have this one from Pope Rackets violated my body. Says no foreign policy questions, I hear. Yeah, I noticed that too. Increase of Fed power, the president getting involved in state and local issues shouldn't be priority over limited federal power. Well, I noticed that too, Pope Rackets. They were all domestic stateside issues. I mean, most of them. We had one border issue. We had mostly stuff that DeSantis was very well in, right? He was very familiar with those topics. And I think there's a reason for that, so that he's nice and safe. Hey, Dolphin Fan is the man, sent in 5 new members. Welcome to our newest members. Oreo is coming in. Dryo, Cryo, Scooby Fish, Danielle, Recovered Alcoholic. Congratulations. Recovered ED. Like that. Mountain Streams also gifted membos by Dolphin Fan. Thank you, Dolphin Fan. And hey, our members, if you're a member, whether at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or if you are on YouTube, don't forget to grab the Telegram link and don't forget to join us. We're going live tomorrow morning to do our members only stream, and we'll also see you on Saturday for our Saturday only stream. And so thank you, Dolphin Fan, for inviting new people to join us. Niels says, it's good to have DeSantis as a backup in case Trump goes to jail. That's true. It is a good backup. That is true. And as we talked about in the first segment today, there is a likelihood that Trump goes to jail. It's not a non-zero chance, just so we're clear. It's definitely not non-zero. Good to have DeSantis as a backup indeed. Vienticus is giving us a note. He says, the next ones were from before where you started. All right. I don't know where we're going here, but we got John Allen next. And thank you. Thank you, V. Thank you, V. Thank you, V, for the continuity. Says, Rob, just thought I'd spur the donations today. Come on, people. That's from John Allen over on Locals. Thank you, John. I don't think people were too excited about donos for Ron DeSantis, but that's perfectly okay. Thank you, John, for trying to grease the skids. I appreciate it. John Allen in the house. And hey, we had a bad poet says, where would you start to tell the world something with this stage? Where would you start to tell the world something with this stage if they let you speak? My question would probably just be specifically about the Department of Justice. Something like, what specifically would you do to rein in the Department of Justice and stop them from exploiting their office to prosecute their political enemies? And I'd really love to hear some specifics about that, if you would. Thank you, Mr. Governor. And just see what he says about it. And you'd glean a lot from that. Well, FBI important, or maybe he'd go back to power of the purse or something. But I want to know what they're going to do about it. I think it is a really, really huge problem. Just so we're clear, I mean, they're using it now to sideline Donald Trump, right? They are using the Department of Justice and the state local prosecutors to wage war on their political opponents. And Ron DeSantis didn't leave a good taste in the mouth when he was out there after Donald Trump got indicted for the New York case for the fictitious business records story. He came out and he said, well, I'm not going to comment on a porn star. I'm not going to comment on a case like that. And I went, what? Punk? What? Because this is bigger than that. You, if you win the nominee, are going to be the same person who's going to be subject to the same types of unfair inquisitions. And so this is a red line. You got to get this fixed. Else they will continue to abuse their position to wage war against their political opponents. So it's a critical thing. And that's what I want to know. Or another question would be about free speech, but they kind of hit that one. Crash Bandit says, Rob, you can't pay for that kind of advertising. For the Twitter failure or for the Twitter volume, the amount of people who are there joining in? I don't know. But a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs on the case. John Allen says, come on, YouTube, let's show our appreciation for Rob. Thank you, John. And John is on both platforms trying to get people going. John, I appreciate that. Everybody should listen to John. John's right. Here's another one that came in from Tony Hay Munkets. Tony Hay sent this one, says, I meant I would vote for DeSantis over Jeb Bush. Oh, I see. I think a lot of people would. Yeah. What did Jeb do? Please clap, Jeb. Please clap. Please clap for me. Please clap for me. I have guacamole. All right. Erica Helton is here. Thank you, Erica. Says, if he doesn't get the nomination, do you think he becomes vice president? I think it would be a good pick. I really think it would be a good way to unify the two major factions of the party. Unite the clans. Remember when William Wallace said that in Braveheart? Unite the clans. Remember? Unite us, is what he said. That would be a nice thing to happen in the Republican Party. What I don't want to happen is for one side, 1/3 of the Republicans to sit home because they're upset about the primary. So, yes, I like a nice, aggressive, sporty, enthusiastic primary, but we don't want people knifed to death so that they can't come back and they don't want to come and join in the main election. Vientica says, you guys make me work. Thanks, V. You're doing a great job. We appreciate all of the amazing clipping over there. NY says the Trump prosecution is playing with fire and very likely will push the U.S. into civil war. I think that they are doing that. I really don't think it's an understatement. Okay, the Trump prosecution in and of itself may not lead to an immediate civil war or a division of the states, but the long-term consequence of this is going to cause a backlash, and it's going to cause a total evaporation of legitimacy that I think a lot of people in America hold currently in the U.S. government, even in the DOJ. I think it's all going to evaporate. So good to see you, NY. This one from DJ Liquid Smoke says, I looked it up. The forefathers say it in the Constitution. Even if someone is locked up for crimes, they can still be elected for president. That's true. Yeah, and I think that's a great way for Trump to get rid of all of this. It'd be amazing if he got elected and just decided all of these federal prosecutions are now done because the DOJ is going to be taken care of. We'll see. We'll keep holding our breath. This one from Tony Hay says, it comes down to this, and they put DeSantis through all the crap they put Trump through. Could he even handle it? I don't think so. I don't know. I honestly don't know that anybody could handle it. What Trump has been going through in America has been insane. Insane. And they are pulling out all the stops in order to get it done. I think it would be tough for any politician to handle it, to be honest. I actually wonder how Trump handles it. Could DeSantis handle it? I don't know. Multiple criminal investigations. I don't know. I don't think people spiral out of control in politics, but they do make decisions. They do come to agreements and they pursue certain courses of action so things don't happen to them. And that's what ultimately concerns me in this case. So, yeah, you got to have a massive ego. You got to have massive confidence. You probably have to be a little bit crazy in order to just keep going. But that, my friends, is it for us on the Super Chats. And so I want to thank everybody who was sending those in. We are going to leave it there and wrap up and go over to a very brief after party for our members. And so before we do, we want to invite you to join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is where we will be chatting soon. Oh yeah, let's say hello to Twitter. I forgot to take a look at some of the Twitter comments. we've forgotten some of the Twitter comments. Let's see. We forgot the Twitter comments yesterday. Here we go from Paul Minot. Paul says, start practicing Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya. All right, I'll work on that later. Danny McWilliams is here sharing some gifts. Nookie says that DeSantis is a yawn fest. V says, I watched all these candidates and all I can think is if you want something done right, after all, I keep fixing everything else. Might as well fix that too. Supersonic says, Robert has questions. God-sized hole says DeSantis is sounding like he's been talking to Jim Jordan a lot. Adam's here. What's up, Adam? Says, hello, my friends. We have Crusader and said, dude, grow up. Dude, grow up. They have failed for years, and this too shall fail right along with Rhino Ron. Feline Fun says, too many ad breaks during your live stream on YouTube. Well, talk to YouTube about that. Crash Bandit says, drive over to Rumble. And P.S. I'm watching you on Rumble too, as always, from Charlie Girl. Yeah, go on over to Rumble. There's multiple places to watch if you don't like YouTube. Yeah, this one, this was the one I was looking for from Hug Your Dog Today. Shared this one. The Twitter server farm is what that looks like. Ron DeSantis showed up to Twitter, and this is what their server room looked like. Ron DeSantis like, hey guys, I'm here. Hey, I'm here for a presidential announcement. What's going on at Twitter? Didn't work out for him. Charlie Girl says, Rob, I believe Trump's referring to DeSantis as Rob just because he's robbing votes, being divisive now. Maybe he's just being kind of like a punk about it, you know, Rob or whatever his name is. Like, remember when Donald Trump called Adam Schiff little Adam shit? Remember that? Because he misspelt his last name. I remember that. It was a lot of fun. Okay, and so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And we appreciate everyone who joined in on the show today, our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. That's where we're going for our amazing after party. Don't forget to get your field of greens before we get out of here on the day so you can get your real organic superfood and feel healthy and nutrified, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to save 15% with code Robert. Also, check out spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap if you would like to get the Mindmap tool and create a free account for yourself so you can navigate around at your heart's leisure. Also want to thank the mods who mod down the fort for us and keep things nice and orderly. Shout out to Vienticus. We made him work today. Thank you, V. K Beans in the house. Just Cause. Playing Hooky. Ronnie Cole. Our friend Zulu. Beyond Geo Stars is with us. We got Zach Nichols in the house. John Allen. Janek 909. Our friend Dog Digger. And Donut Mind Me. Modding down the forts for us. Big shout outs to our friend Sleepy Dog Lee. Geegum. And our friend Nathan. N810. Who are memeing down the forts for us and helping us look nice and beautiful. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party, and we would love to see you there. And so check it out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If we don't see you there, we hope to see you here tomorrow when we do it all again for yet another live stream. We need you back so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.